Welcome to another edition of the Royal Lions UK podcast, episode number 132, A Deeper Shade of Honolulu Blue. My name's Matthew Turner alongside co-host Anthony Fitzpatrick, Ryan McCluskey. How you doing, boys?
I'm not doing bad, thank you.
Good, thanks. It's raining, it's pissing it down, it's beautiful, I love it.
It makes a bit of a difference to the hot and sweaty weather we've had recently. I can actually close my door of my outside shack, which is a blessing in itself. Don't have to hear the dogs from next door shouting as I'm barking as I'm trying to record this, which is definitely a blessing. How are you guys been in the last week? It feels like football is starting to come back.
Yeah, it's not bad. They say training camp's just around the corner. Things are starting to build up. So yeah, it's sort of the purgatory of the off season is starting to come to an end, and it's a lovely feeling as well. And as an aside, it was a great thing of the weekend. My team absolutely swamped Ryan's in football as well, so got to enjoy that one. Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah. No, it is what it is. Like I say, they beat us last year. Like I say, in that same friendly, that's why I didn't go. But still didn't make it up mid-year, so we'll see you again next year in pre-season, I guess.
Yeah, and the first time we're probably there, you'll absolutely hammer us. That's just how it goes. But hey ho, it's all coming back. It's all good.
Yeah. First game's this Saturday, so it's going to be a big one.
I can't believe it's come around so quickly. It feels like sport is finally starting to happen again. I'm so pumped for it. And of course,
Wow.
The Lions rookies reported to minicamp on Saturday with the vets coming back tomorrow. So it's all happening. But let's get through the housekeeping to start with. Don't forget our Discord channel, the College Football Podcast, to like and sub, and go over to our friends at Lions Nation Unite as well and download their app. That College Football Podcast, boys, you're back on Wednesday, I think. What are you talking about this week?
So we're just carrying on with our conference previews at the moment. We've done the CUSA and we've done the Sun Belt. We're moving through the rest of the group of 5 conferences now. I think it's the American that we're doing this week. That's where Desmond Ridder and the Cincinnati Bearcats came from last year. That's a very, very fun division. So we're going to be previewing that for the upcoming season.
Fantastic. All right, good stuff. Don't forget that we are now a Twitch affiliate as well. If you've got any Prime subs that you can throw our way, that's for free. Doesn't cost you anything, but just puts a little bit in our pocket. It'd be much appreciated in our quest to get to Detroit for 2024 for the draft in April. Every little helps in that regard. Just a final shout out as well for our feedback form. It is in the description below on YouTube, so please, if you're on there, do go and click on that, or if you're listening on the audio, please do go ahead and do that as well. We're going to have our little annual meeting that we do just before every season to go through what we've done well in the last 12 months, where we think we're going to take it, and your feedback really does help inform that conversation. So please do go and just give 5 minutes to us, and we'll try and make this show even better than what we've done so far. But thank you to everyone who is joining us live in the chat right now. Det Fan Man, Dan McGuinness, Mike is in the building, just Joseph Oyston, Justin Gassaway, and Chrome as well. Really, really appreciate all of you joining. We're going to get through some news, and then we're going to talk about training camp. I mentioned that the rookies have already reported, but not a lot of news coming out about it yet. We're going to be talking about what we're looking for. What are we fancying? So we've got the schemes and, Ben Johnson's offense. Is it going to look any different to what we've seen so far? Maybe he's going to be a bit more in control, and Dan Campbell is going to let him a little bit loose. We know that the defense is potentially changing to this 4-3 and a bit more attacking rather than reacting. We're going to talk about coaches in general. We're going to talk about the players and the camp battles to look for as well. Cakeman1218 says, what is the Twitch account? I think it is ROTL_UK, if you want to go onto there. All right, but boys, we've got a bit of news. We actually have some real news to get to today. First of all, the Lions have made official the retirement of John Penasini, which is very sad. We talked about that before, but in the corresponding move with him retiring is the coming of a new player. We have signed Isaiah Buggs. He played his last 3 seasons as a Steeler. He was a 6th round pick in 2019 and played 29 games in his 3 seasons. He also was signed in this off-season somewhere else, but was released, and PFF have had him graded out in the sort of mid-50s range for 2 of his 3 seasons. He comes in as the presumed backup nose tackle, and I don't know, it felt like, Ash was all over this, saying, we need a backup nose, if only just to provide some competition in camp. It did feel like, to me, that we could spend at least one of the 90 on an extra nose tackle just to back things up. But I know that some people thought that we had enough in terms of D tackles, maybe not that could play at the nose or the 1, but that could play at the 3, and in a 4-man front, that's what they're going to be playing. What do you make of the move? Do you think he's got a shot? Or do you think this is a camp body? What do you make of it?
It's a camp body for now. I mean, we do.
I'd say he's got a really good shot.
I think the battle's there with Demetrius Taylor probably, for that backup nose interior spot. So, yeah, it's a position where we need a bit of depth. We don't need starters. I think we've got the starters that we require. We just need some depth going behind, because obviously it's a position where there's a lot of wear and tear. You need guys who can take relevant snaps there. But I mean, for me, I'm still behind Demetrius Taylor at the minute, but we'll see what this guy can do. I mean, his run defense has never been ranked very high, which is a problem because that's what we need. The missed tackle rate's over 20%, which is damn high. And again, something else we don't need. We have enough of those guys in this team already. So, there's a couple of flags on things that I think we really need here. So, and there's a reason the Steelers have let him go. So I don't think we can sort of say, oh, he's going to come and be a superstar for us overnight. If anything, he's going to be a little bit of depth, but yeah, hopefully he's down the chart, because I don't think he's someone you want to be starting.
Oh, I don't want him to be playing. If he's on the field, then that means something's probably gone wrong and someone's got hurt. So it's just an insurance policy at best. If it means Demetrius Taylor is on the practice squad and this is the backup for the nose tackle this year just to prepare Demetrius for next year, that would be fine by me. But Bugs is just basically there to make sure if we do have to take some relief after a play or two, that's fine. So he's never shown that he's able to start. He's only played in like 29 games in 3 years. That's not a lot of football. So there isn't too much there to warrant him playing meaningful snaps.
I can see him getting a role as DT5, NT2, and especially, I've been talking about the need on goal line defense for having a bigger guy. Like, sometimes you just need bulk, and we just don't have bulk. Now, he's 6'3", 300 or so he's not the biggest D-tackle you've ever seen, but he's slightly bigger than Levi, and he's slightly bigger than Brockers. I don't know, just someone who can come in on specific situations and actually play a role is something that I'm looking at. I'm not looking him to play in the centre of the field. I'm not looking for him to, play between the 20s, really. I'm looking for him to be in goal line sets at both areas, actually. If we are putting a team under pressure inside their own 2, inside their own 3, and they're trying to run the ball up the gut, he could be an option there too. So very specific situations I can see this working. As Ant says, his tackling has been poor, especially last season. He had tackle grades of 70 and 75 in 19 and 20, and then that dropped to 29 in 2021. I mean, I know you guys are not massive on PFF. I haven't watched his tape, gotta confess, but that...
He played more snaps last year than he did in those previous 2.
Yeah,
that says
I know.
A lot.
That says absolutely a lot.
That says a lot. That's worse than what Anzalone graded out at his tackling last year, and we all knew how bad Anzalone was at his tackling. You say there, if I've got someone in a tight goal line situation, I'm trying to keep them in their own area, I ain't getting them on the pitch. No chance. I'm not having a running back going to pile over him and get 4 or 5 yards and release the pressure. No chance. I just think because people think it's a nose tackle, they'll be excited. Just be wary. Look at the numbers. I know I don't like PFF and what they do, but in certain situations like this, the numbers are actually useful. That tackling grade, you say he's had 2 70 seasons and a 28 season, but again, that's kind of a falsehood because he's not had 2 70 graded seasons. He's had a few snaps in a season when he's done all right, but when he's had a bigger workload, the numbers don't lie. So, I just rather give the snaps to a guy like Taylor, who's coming out of college. He's a fresh guy. He's not just meandering aimlessly around the NFL now. He's got purpose. He's got point to prove.
Completely agree. And Det Fan Man said exactly the same. He says, I agree with Ash. We need another D tackle that's 300 plus rotation. Bugs is close at 295, but he's got small arms, so it would be nice to see us get someone a bit larger. I completely agree. I don't think this is bugs definitely all the way through camp. We saw it last year. Players coming and going quickly, get him in for a try, they're not the one. Week later, they're gone, bring in someone new. And I expect that sort of rotation to happen, actually, in the weeks coming up to the new season. With preseason on the way, you have one bad game out there and you could be out on your ass. So the players have really got to perform. It all starts right now. Let's move on to our second bit of news, which is the Lions have hired a new coach. And Michigan fans potentially may not be too happy with it, but we've signed former Ohio State quarterback J.T. Barrett as an offensive assistant coach. He's 27 years old. He was on some NFL practice squads before playing for Edmonton in the Canadian Football League. An intriguing hire, boys. Someone who can, is a very, very young guy, but clearly was quite successful in college and put some hurt on some Michigan teams of the recent past. And got to bolster that quarterback room, right? I mean, he must be about Jared Goff's age.
I mean,
he's only 28. Yeah.
Yeah, he's younger than us, which is the depressing thing. But I mean, the Lions seem to have found, a niche where they seem to be able to identify good young coaching talent. Now, I guess it might be a bit different with Aaron Glenn, who you already knew the talent was there, but still, they're bringing through talented guys who are working the system well. And, no matter how much you hate Ohio State, anyone who's on their offensive staff, has overseen a period of great success for a lot of them. Their offenses have been pretty good these last few years. So, this is a guy who's coming in from a winning culture, who's learning off some really great coaches. And that's exactly what he'll do here. He'll go onto the offensive coaching staff. He's learning under some very bright minds there. And hopefully sort of in 3-4 years down the line, maybe when some of our other coordinators have gone elsewhere, whatever, you might see him again, start rising the ranks here. So, if they've identified him as a future mind, then that's great. But yeah, he's coming from a good system, from a good college team on a good offense.
Yeah, it feels a bit like an internship. I don't feel like he offers much anything at all right now. But as you say, you've got to start somewhere. Like I say, I'm pretty sure he signed to the CFL, which he didn't want to do anyway, had a bad injury. I don't think he ever saw the field for the Edmonton Elks. So he's very fortunate to get this position, and he's going to grasp it with both arms. But like I say, he's in a good young room. So if he's working with Brunel and Ben Johnson, that's a pretty good thing for him. Like I say, 27, 28. By the time he gets like 30, 31, he might have aspirations of being a QB coach or being an offensive coordinator. So just the first step on the ladder, whether that's with us in the future or somewhere else. You got to start somewhere.
And for the love of God, whatever you do, don't equate this hire to us going after CJ Stroud in the next draft. I'm fed up of it already. Just because we've got a guy from Ohio State who's been coaching him this last year, it does not mean we're going to draft him. For the love of God, end that narrative now.
I mean, it doesn't mean we're training for Justin Fields. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding. I do think that this is another step on the road of what we've seen in the past, right? So Dan Campbell, if there's one thing I think that he's proven so far without doubt, we don't know whether he's a really good coach yet. We've seen promising signs, but it's got to come in the form of wins. As Ant has said all along, you don't win games from this point onwards. We start to judge you a little bit, and the jury is still out there. But what we have seen is that he is a tremendous judge of football acumen. So you see Ben Johnson get promoted when you might have gone for someone more established, in fact, like he did before, and it didn't work out, and learning from his mistakes. But with Aaron Glenn and with Aubrey Pleasant and all these guys we've mentioned before, it all comes back to one place, which is that Dan Campbell can identify talent, whether player or coach. And that trust that I have in him means I think that this is going to be a terrific hire. It might be completely blind right now, because I know very little about him apart from what he did in college. I know nothing about what he can teach a player. But, I mean, he's going to know what it takes to succeed in the NFL, mainly because he's been through the college process for these guys. He can relate to these guys in that aspect, but he's seen some of the best do it, and he knows where he was at. So he's going to be able to relate to these guys in this stage of their career. It's something relatable, but also I just think he's going to be a damn good coach.
So I think the best teams always have the next guy ready to go, because if you have a good coaching staff, you're going to lose them. I mean, and you look at the defensive side of the ball, look where we're at. We've got Aaron Glenn as our defensive coordinator. We've got Aubrey Pleasant just behind him, who we're thinking, hang on, he could be the heir apparent going forward. He's got the looks for it. He's learning off Aaron Glenn, but he does his own thing as well. He looks very talented. So you've kind of got him there ready to take on that mantle. Behind him, you've got Kelvin Shepherd, who's really emerging as a leader on there at the minute. And again, another guy who down the line might look at trying to take a defensive coordinator position. So if we lose Glenn and Pleasant gets boosted up, then we've got Kelvin Shepherd waiting behind him. So on the defense, you've got this nice little almost factory of guys behind who are developed or are developing and getting ready to go. On the offense, you sort of have it a little bit, but not as much. So obviously Ben Johnson's up there now, but I mean Juice Staley is there. I mean he could be a head coach in fairness. Offensive coordinator might be beneath him now, but you still have that backup if Ben Johnson gets poached by someone and goes somewhere. You've got Hank Fraley in there, who again, very good coach in his own right. Maybe he might want to do an OC job one day. We know he's a damn good positional coach. So again, you've got sort of that factory there of guys behind it. And if this is the guy who's starting at the bottom now and is going to move up tiers as he goes along, then that's what you want. You want to keep getting these young, hungry guys in. So if you start losing your staff very quickly, you've always got a backup and you don't have to rush into an outside hire. So I think that's what this is. He's like starting off bottom tier on the offensive side of the ball, and we're just, securing against the future, which is a good thing. It's what you want to do.
And other coaches will see this happening, see the success happening for the coaches and want to come here. And that's the most important thing. If you become an attractive destination, you breed success naturally because the best people want to come to you. It's survival of the fittest, and Detroit has not been the fittest in the last 20 years, but it's been built in the right way for once, and that it's bearing fruit, and we can see it already. It's the only thing I know about this organization thus far is this is the place they're definitely succeeding, and it gives me some hope for the future. And you've kind of said that if the Lions get under the number of wins that you're hoping for this year, that potentially the rebuild is over. Like in a sort of melodramatic way, perhaps, but like it would put a real red flag up. But part of me actually thinks that the way they've built the organization, especially in terms of coaches, actually kind of future-proofs things a bit, because no matter what happens with the wins and losses, if the coaches can see that it is really a meritocracy, you perform well, you get promoted, and also if you don't, you're gone. And it's ruthless like that you don't get hung around with, but the training that these coaches are going to get really does promote them. The best will still continue to come here, and the players will see that too and want to go and work with these guys. So regardless of what happens this year, I see the direction going upward anyway.
Oh, I agree. I still stand by the statement that the rebuild is in big trouble if you don't. But if Dan Campbell does bad this year and they decide to dispense with him, then you've got Aaron Glenn and Juice Staley fighting it out for that head coach spot. You've got your coaches developed there. So I agree. It doesn't hurt you as much in the long term, but that doesn't take away from the fact that I still think a bad season is a bad season regardless. Under that win rate is a very bad season. And we've got to start raising questions. But no, you're right. We are, and that's the whole point of this. It is future-proofing yourself. You need to have your next coordinators in line. You need to have, because I mean, for years before that, how often did we develop our own coordinators? Good ones at that. How many trash coordinators have we had over the years who've just been bought out by a head coach from somewhere else? They don't really do the job. Head coach really sort of is just a puppet master with his finger up there. Well, I mean, here we're developing our own coordinators and they're developing into head coaches. It is the right thing to do. But yeah, it doesn't take away from expectation this year. There is expectation there and it needs to be delivered on.
The last time I can remember a Lions organization having coordinators that got head coaching interviews was 2016, where both DC and OC got an interview each, I think. And before that, I don't remember another one in my fandom. All the way back to 2009, I don't remember another one. So I am thinking Jim Bob Cooter got an interview, I think, and Terrell Austin. Yeah, and that's it. For the last 13 years, we've had those two, and then we've had Aaron Glenn. And that's it. That's shameful that it's so low. I know that the Lions haven't exactly been a good organisation since then, but, I mean, even some of the worst coaches that we can think of have got interviews somewhere. It says a lot about this organisation that they haven't been.
No, And like we said, I've just rattled off a few there who we can see as being fans and through the system. We can see these coaches developing before us right now. Like I say, you've got sort of a plethora of guys in the defense at the minute who could take the next step up to coordinator and beyond. Pleasant got interviewed for coordinator jobs this offseason. Shepard's definitely going to get DC offers eventually. If Wash makes this defensive line work this year, because he's got a lot to work with. If he gets that going, he's suddenly going to be a contender for it as well. So it's crazy. And then, like I say, on the offense, we've had the best offensive line coordinator we've had, a coach we've had in forever and a day.
Best in the league.
You've got
Best in the league.
one of the best. Well, one of the best in the league. I'm not crowning best in the league, but he's certainly top 5. And we've not had that in forever and a day. So we've just promoted Ben Johnson up from within. So we've had more in this last 12 months than we have this millennium. It's crazy. But it's the right way to do it.
It is. And our final bit of news to round this off, and then we'll look at training camp. So ahead of that, we had our rookies report, and also, I'm guessing, Romeo and Natrez, they're not rookies, really, at all. But anyway, I don't know how this happened, but there we go. PUP list was announced, at least the first part of it. The second part will probably be announced tomorrow morning. But for now, we know that cornerback Jerry Jacobs and defensive ends Romeo Okwara and Josh Pascal are on the physically unable to perform list, and then wide receiver Jameson Williams and linebacker Natrez Patrick are on the non-football injury list. Both lists are effectively the same right now. Neither of them can train at the moment with the rest of the team. They can rehab, they can train by themselves, but they cannot train with the team. They can come back at any time during the off-season up until preseason game 2. After that point, they will have to sit out the first 4 regular season games at least. And it's not done yet because obviously the veterans haven't reported yet, so they don't have to be listed until they do have to report, which is tomorrow. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure that you've heard another podcast talk about why the distinction between these two lists. But if you haven't, I'll go over it again just very, very quickly. Non-football injury list is non-NFL football injury list. So Jameson Williams got his injury in college football. Natrez Patrick, not really sure what he did, but it must have just been away from the facility in this off-season. Jerry Jacobs got injured in season last year, so did Romeo. Pascal is odd. I think he aggravated his injury
he aggravated it in
minicamp,
training camp.
Yes. Yeah, there we go. So because it happened while he was a member of the Lions, it now becomes a PUP list, not NFI. But there is really no distinction in how either list operate. They are the same. They are amalgamated. So there we go. What do you make of these boys? I mean, Ant, you tweeted out from our account the most notable omission from this list.
Yeah, no Jeff Okudah on it, which is, it's great news for us. To be honest, this list is a lot shorter than I thought it might be. James Mitchell is healthy, thank God. I mean, I always thought he was going to be. I don't know what the panic was over him, but, his ACL injury is in the past, which is good. Okudah is not on that list, which is great. I mean, I know he had a really good training camp last year, and everyone started getting really hype and that. But we've watched his recovery since day one. We've watched him go through it all, and he looks like he's moving really well at the minute. He's the attitude of which he's sort of approached this is what you want from him. He's done everything you can ask of him and a bit more. So you'd hope to keep seeing the improvement there. So I'm delighted that he's back, and hopefully he's going to be ready for week 1. Hopefully he can start proving doubters wrong sooner rather than later. But I mean, I don't think there were any massive surprises on there. The one that is worrying is Pascal, because this is Levi 2.0 in so many different ways. He gets an injury late in his college career. We draft him. The injury gets exacerbated during minicamp, and then we all know what sort of an injury-ridden season he had last year, where he could just never get going. And this Pascal injury, groin, core, and lower body, which is like the worst injury you can get as a pass rusher. You need that torque, you need that movement there. You're just thinking, is it the curse hitting again? So I hope to God that it's something that's not too bad with him, because we need him at DT this year. But like I say, overall, the list is a lot smaller than I thought. And I don't think it is going to get bigger, because, I mean, Romeo's a vet. Jeff's a vet. they've put the statuses of these guys out. I don't feel like anything else is going to get revealed. I don't think there's anyone else who's been long-term injured who's due in now. So I think this is going to be it.
And Ryan, actually, it was mentioned in the chat just now, but Joseph Austin has pointed out that we don't have tight end James Mitchell on this list. You must be happy about that.
Yep. I'm surprised by the short list. I was expecting more on it. I don't know if there's anyone else that can go on it. I'm trying to scratch your mind if anyone's got any injuries. Like I said, the camp battle for tight end 2 is wide open. It's like the fucking Mariana Trench. It's that open. Anyone can step up and take it, except Garrett Griffin. He won't be tight end 2, so he's tight end 3. But whoever's tight end 2, it's going to be fun to watch. Like I say, because you've still got Zylstra. Oh, Zylstra's not on the list, which is good to see.
No Zylstra, no Derek Dees. He was injured during minicamp.
This is going to be really fun. Zylstra, Dees, you've still got Brock Wright and James Mitchell. Like, not all of them are going to make the team, but these tight end positions are wide open, so it's going to be fun to watch. The one that blocks the best has got the best chance, and James Mitchell is known for being a good blocker. If he can block well, then he will walk onto the team. So it's really good to see. And with Pascal, I don't mean to be harsh, but I'm writing off all expectations for this year. Like I say, core, quad lower, which is it? Is it a combination of all three? It's not a good sign. It's a very ambiguous way to say it. So I'm thinking it's probably serious. So I'm not going to get my hopes up to see him much this year, or it's going to be in flashes. So to get Levi back to overcome for him being out will be good to see.
Yeah, it's worrying with it. It really is. But I agree, we're on the tight end battle before. James Mitchell was a really good college tight end, and just the injury sort of derailed him a bit, but he's got everything you want as a guy there. So hoping he takes that second spot, to be fair. But I think we'll keep a few on the practice squad anyhow. We did last year. Saying that our injury luck with tight ends last year was, horrific doesn't really do it justice, does it? I think we lost that many that, it just wasn't funny.
No, it was really bad. I'm not writing off Pascal's season just yet. I mean, I know it's not great he starts on this list. We know he aggravated it in camp, and that was, 6 weeks ago now, or 2 months ago, whatever it was. So it has been a little while. But, I mean, there's no saying that he couldn't be back next week and participate in the majority of camp, or, we have absolutely no idea where he's at right now. And if he sees a good portion of it, then I'm going to have some expectations for this season. I'm not prepared to write it off just yet. If it is as bad as you guys are fearing, then absolutely he deserves a pass. But I've still got some hopes for him. We didn't write off Levi straight away, and I don't think we should be writing off him just yet. But let's see. James Mitchell is really, really promising, because we were worrying he'd be out for a good long time, and that would set him way back. There were some murmurings of, well, if he's out for the majority of camp, is he going to get cut? Because there's plenty of people in that tight end room, and, if we're only running with 3, it's kind of hard to run with 2, so he'd be in danger. Him coming back for camp now is absolutely massive for his potential career.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely agreed. I think the thing, though, with Levi is we were just disappointed we didn't get to see him. It's not writing them off, but the parallels are very similar, because when we were told about Levi's injury last year, it was very nonchalant the way we were told. Like Ryan was saying, very ambiguous. They're not saying much about it. And we thought with Levi, oh, well, by the end of training camp, he'll be fit and ready to go. When it turns out he never was. And this is an injury in a part of his body which he really needs to function as a pass rusher. And again, we all want to see Pascal play, because, he's got so much potential there, and this defensive line's critical to us this year. The defense still needs work doing on it in other areas, and the D-line's where we've invested, and we want to see a return on that investment. So we want all the players to be healthy and fighting fit. So, because I said exactly the same thing, I'm just going to write off any expectation of Pascal this year, because I don't want to sit and wait for him eagerly like I did with Levi. I'm disappointed. So if I just say that's it now and he comes back, then it's a bonus. It's positive for you. But hopefully Levi's fine. And Cephas is as well. Cephas was out all year. He's nowhere to be seen on the injury report. So again, a lot of guys who are getting back to full fitness. And boy, we really need it.
Indeed. Right, let's move on to our main segment now. We are going to talk about training camp. And I'm going to start off with scheme. So we know that this is Ben Johnson's first off-season as offensive coordinator. Now, how much in terms of play calling he's going to have, I don't know yet. But he has had a full off-season to prepare. Now, obviously, he was part of the room in terms of being tight ends coach last year. His input would have been sought in terms of how to get the best out of Hockenson, but now being given control of the whole thing, and we know that Dan, even if he's the play caller, likes to give his coordinator a wide berth to create the plan, even if he's the one to implement it. So don't worry about the fact that this is definitely going to be Ben Johnson's offense one way or the other. How are you expecting the offense to change now that we have him having a full off-season? We saw maybe an indication of the differences between him and Anthony Lynn when the changeover was made. But obviously Dan's hands may have been all over that too. Do you think that it's going to be more of the same of what we saw? An extension of what we saw because he's having more time to prepare? Do you think it's going to be completely different? And any sort of specifics on exactly what you expect to see, maybe in terms of alignments or kind of having particular formations a bit more often than others? I'm trying to get an idea of maybe what we might want to see next year.
I tell you what, scheme is secondary to me towards tempo. I need to see tempo. I need to see an aggressively fast-moving offense because that is what we didn't have last year. And that's what we got told time and time and time again we were trying to improve on and we need to get better at. So whatever scheme they're going to roll out, you want to see the urgency. You want to see, or you want to hear the cadence. Nice, simple, easy to relay. The team gets on with it. Simplify it enough. Simplify it, but make it effective. So the tempo's huge, If without that, no matter how good your scheme is, you're going to struggle because you ain't going to put teams on their back foot. You're not firing on all cylinders. So that's got to be one of the big things in camp for me this year.
I think we're going to see more deep. I think we're going to see more deep shots. We did not bring DJ Chark in to not extend the field. You're going to see a lot more fades, a lot more posts, a lot more corners, flood concepts where you have guys going short, medium, and shallow. A lot of the time last year, like say, we were easing into games where we were just like crossing routes, we were going short, dunking off. I feel like we're going to trust the offense more. I feel like they're going to trust Goff more. And they're just going to open up the playbook a little bit. They're going to take more expansion plays. They're going to go more deep crossing routes like this. It's going to be more explosive and less dink and dunk, hopefully, which we did see towards the end of last season because the personnel we brought in is an offense that takes shots and tries to hit the home run. We didn't go and get Williams to just go dink and dunk. Like I say, he's one of the fastest players in the entire league and he can take off the line and beat corners. And if DJ Chark lives up to potential, that massive frame with that good force speed, I'd like to see him getting wide open and tearing off down the sideline.
I think one of the things I'm expecting to see actually is a continuation of some of the underneath stuff. But I think the reason why that happens is because more room is created by having the fast guys that Ryan, you just talked about. If Chark is out there streaking down the field, it's inevitably going to create room for Hockenson, for Amon-Ra St. Brown underneath. And, I expect to see a lot of passes dumped off to them, but a bit more yak potentially for those guys. But I do expect the A dot to improve as well. I do expect their shots to be taken, but I think it's going to be heavily planned. I think what we saw from Goff is when he was in rhythm, when he was in structure, that he was able to take those shots when he was comfortable with it. But actually playing outside of structure is just maybe not his thing. And so with an offensive line this good, I can expect to see us actually probably run at 50-50 with running the ball, maybe even slightly more running the ball than passing the ball. But I expect to see a lot of play action in this offense. I think that you're going to see a heck of a lot of it.
The trouble is, though, if you can't hit the deep shots, then teams ain't going to fall for all that under stuff. It's all right having Jameson Williams and DJ Chark on the field, but if they know you can't find them, then, going under and doing all the play action stuff all the time just ain't going to wash because defenses will figure it out really quickly. So you have to go heavy on the deep balls as well. You have to practice it. That's what training camp's for. That's a part of our game we didn't have last year. And it's something that you're really going to have to nail. Because like I say, if you can't do it, then defenses know exactly what you're going to be doing. They know that even though those guys, they'll just leave them to it. That's kind of the point of it. So, you would expect to see a lot more there. But I agree with you. I expect to see a lot more running the ball. the offensive line's fully healthy now. And, we were told when they first came here, the coaches, running the ball, establishing the ground game is one of the key fundamentals of the game. And, we'd never really had the chance to do that last year because the offensive line was never fully healthy. Now, Swift is hopefully healthy. The rest of the running backs are healthy as well. None of them are on the injury reports or anything. So you would hope, again, they go really heavy at that as well. Just start to implement those parts of the games, which we weren't really able to do last year. We know we can do the play action stuff. We know we've got the guys to do that. I don't want to waste training camp doing the stuff we already know how to do.
Yeah.
I think as well, I think we've got to find better ways to use TJ Hawkinson. Like I said, because he's a bit slow and he's not great after contact. He falls down way too often. Like I say, I'd like to see less short passes to him and try get him to do stuff after the thing, because I'd like to take a bit more, get him a bit more, expand his route tree. Because everything right now is try to get the ball out in front of him and then try and make something happen. But a lot of time I'm seeing that he's not doing it. Like I said, I know he's been hurt, but at times it's really frustrating. Like I say, where he'll literally stumble or he'll fall over, or he'll just look to go out of bounds because he shies away from contact, does not like contact either. So I'd like to see, let's expand his route tree. Let's get him a little bit deeper. Let's get him on those crossing routes where he doesn't have to then turn up fields and make up all those yards. Like I said, let's just expand him a bit more, because everything seems like a bit simple, and ask him to do everything after. And if he's able to do that, he'll make that jump up, because that's what Mark Andrews, Kelsey and Kittle can do. They're able to rip off those big, explosive plays. They've got good balance. Like I say, they're just things he needs to work on. Everything, once he gets the ball in his hands, is fine. But when he gets the ball in the hands, sometimes he just looks a little bit shaky.
And we need to learn to be more clever as well. We need to utilize the assets that we have at our disposal here. We have a varied offense this year now. I mean, we used the two-back sets sometimes last year. Use them more. I mean, what's to stop you lining up with two backs in the backfield? You've got Swift and Williams in there. So one, you don't know whether we're giving it to Williams and we're going to run it down your throat, or we're going to throw it out wide to Swift. Then you've got DJ Chark out there as your wide threat. You've got Amon-Ra and TJ on the inside. Are we going to hit you on the inside? Are we going to hit you on the outside? Are we going to run it through you? What are we going to do? I want to see a lot of that experimented with as well, because, we've picked these playmakers specifically all for their things that they do well. So, just multiply the amount of, options that you have at your disposal. Hell, run some of them in play if you want to. Just decide what's best and go with it. Just keep teams guessing, because when we did all the trick stuff last year, defenses struggled against us when we got a bit more imaginative, after Anthony Lynn left. So do that. Just, play around. You've got the guys there. You'll find a system that works. You'll find something you're able to do. And, that'll work for the benefit of us.
Yeah, can't disagree with that. I think a couple of things that I want to see in terms of being clever, and we talked about it all last season, is more two-back sets. I want to see Williams be catching the ball out of the backfield, because it's something that we have talked about, the fact that he's a dual threat out of the backfield. Didn't see it as much as I wanted to last year. I want to see that. I can see Craig Reynolds actually get quite a lot of the ball as a running back, as a change of pace guy. You don't play 3 games in the NFL and come in the top 5 in terms of yards gained after contact without having really good contact balance. I don't care who you're against. And that ain't lucky. That's Craig just being good with the ball in hand. So I expect to see him actually get the ball more than we expect. And I think that Amon-Ra is going to be someone who is going to do some of those trick plays that we were calling out for last year. All through preseason, we were like, where's this? What's happening to this? Start the season. No jet sweeps with this guy. He's not lining up in the backfield, when it's stuff that we identified that was very much within his skill set. All this sort of thing, when Ben Johnson has actually had time to put it into the playbook, get them drilled into it in camp, I think we can expect to see all of these sorts of things coming out as well. Don't forget that Dan Campbell's the guy who, if he knows he's got a talent disadvantage, he wants tricks up his sleeve, and he likes using them. And he can only do that if there's lots of them to use, because down the stretch, you don't want to be using them all up. You've got to continue to have some more tricks up your sleeve. I think it starts right now. All right, let's move on to coaches specifically. We've all spoken about how much we're looking forward to loads of the guys in this room. I think Shepherd is potentially the one, the linebackers coach, got a promotion from outside linebackers coach to linebacker coach in this off season, and he's bringing the energy for me. But because he's not a coordinator, perhaps he doesn't get the sort of shout about that we're used to when we're talking about Aaron Glenn, Ben Johnson, and even some of the other guys like Aubrey Pleasant seems to get more fanfare than he has as yet. Is there any guys on the coaching staff that you're really looking forward to see on the field with these guys and coaching them up? Because it's a joy to watch sometimes.
For me, it has to be Todd Wash again. This is the most critical part of our team going into this year. The defensive line needs to come to play. And if he can't make it work with the amount of talent he has at his disposal on here, then, bye-bye. For me, this is one of the most critical positions, and he needs to show that he can coach it. Kelvin Shepherd, we all know how great a coach is in that, but he's working with very minimal talent in that room. It's not really fair for him to be judged too heavily this year, whereas Todd Wash has a first-round pick, 2 second-round picks, and a third-round pick from the last 2 drafts. He's got 3 expensive edge rushers on his staff. You've got to make this work. You've got to give the defense something to work with. You've got to protect your secondary. You've got to make some opportunities for the linebackers in there. He's really the one who's got to earn his bread in this training camp and show that he can utilize the most of this defensive line talent that he's got. We've just not had one in forever and a day.
For me, I really want to see what Mark Brunell has done with Jared Goff in this second year. I want to see Jared Goff start this year like he finished last year. I don't want him to be a slumbering lion. I don't want him to slowly just work his way into preseason and go into week 1, just like I say, as a calm and explode. I want to see them two properly go hammer and tong. I want to see Tim Boyle as well and David Blau. I want to see them two understanding that their place on this team is under severe jeopardy. So play like it in camp. I want Mark Brunell to tell them, if one of you two, like I say, can't show to me that you can come in for relief of Jared Goff, then you're gone. Like I say, I think it's time to stop being so nice and all pally. Like I say, because it's bitters in the arse last year because Boyle came in and couldn't deliver. So the QB room for me, they all have to be at a high level, and Mark and the offensive coordinators have got to get them firing on all cylinders quickly. Like I said, fine holding the clipboard, but whoever's on that sideline and is warming up, if anything ever happens, like I said, I want them in focused and able to keep that offense and that tempo. Because like I say, it's gone back to what Ant said, this time this year, no false start penalties, no fucking delay game. I want no huddle. I want good, clever calls, and that starts with the QBs as well. Let's get this language down. I want Jared Goff to know exactly what he's saying. I want the calls to be shorter, minimised, so we're not dragging stuff out, and that all starts from the coaching.
I think the most impactful coach this year who isn't a coordinator is one we haven't mentioned yet, which is Antoine Randall L. Now, we're expecting this offense, the second most expensive offense in the NFL, to be the one actually, the better side of it, the one carrying the team a little bit. We hope the defense is good enough to kind of hang in the game so the offense can deliver. Well, part of that optimism is the fact that we've got Jameson Williams whenever he may come back, and we've got Chark in, and now suddenly Raymond isn't wide receiver 1, but wide receiver 5, potentially. There's a lot of optimism in that room, but it's going to be nothing if the new guys can't come on board, learn the playbook like the back of their hand, and start performing from day one. And that is going to come down to how well Antoine Randall L did. Now, you look at what he did last season with a very limited bunch of people, quality-wise, but also the situation they were in. If you want to put in Khalif Raymond at wide receiver 1, he's going to suffer because as a 3, as a 4 is change of pace. I think he could be really successful coming in late with his pace against tired defenders. You're going to put in a position to succeed. Starting on the field as an X, that can't work. It did okay. We hung in games last year. You saw it. But that was only because the coaching was magnificent. And I'm looking to Antoine Randall to convert a promising off season into a promising season. And that's really where we need the success, the wide receivers to perform when they are expected to.
You kind of answered your own thing, though. We know Randall L can do it. You know, we saw what he did with Cephas in a smaller window last year, but Cephas looked miles better than what he did before. And Amon-Ra developed. He in 1 year, he's developed him no end. So we know he can do that. The other coaches we mentioned have not yet. Brunel did nothing with Goff last year. I mean, obviously the confidence came back, but nothing tangible, nothing that you can rest your hat on and say he's done a good job there. And, you know, maybe you can with Wash and Charles Harris, but again, you want to see him do it with the rookies as well. You know, you need to see the rookie development in there as well. He's done all right, but I think Randall L has shown that he can take a guy and develop him, and we should be quite confident that he can do that.
Yeah, absolutely, I can see that. All right, now let's go on to talk about the players involved in this. I don't want to go into any camp battles just yet, but just to talk about maybe some of the free agents, the veterans and the rookies who are coming into this camp. Who are we looking at who we're expecting to have a good camp, who could be suffering through this process? Have you got any takes about some players individually who might surprise us one way or the other? Or is there just someone who you just want to talk about for no reason at all? What are your thoughts on some of these guys coming in?
Go on, Ryan.
I've just had this thing in the back of my thought, and like I said, my hot take is I think Mike Hughes is going to be the best player we've signed this year. I think he is going to be really good. We have struggled a nickel corner for so long. Justin Coleman was great for 6 months and then bad for a year, and he was expensive. Mike Hughes has had a very slow start. He's been on a simmer, then he got to like KC, they turned it up to like a 3 on the hob. He boiled away nice last year, had the best career of his year, and now he's coming in. And for me, he is like penciled in as the starter for me, just at preseason week 1 right now, because he's the most experienced. And I feel like he's got coming off a good year and he's got a lot to prove. But I feel like this could be his best year. I feel like he's going to come in and he feels like he looks around him. He's one of the elder statesmen. Like, there's a lot of kids around him and he thinks, I've got to be one of the guys that shows these guys how to step up. I've got to be one that leads from the front, one of the most vocal in the secondary. And I've never been that high in like Clemson corners. I knew he was a failed Viking, but I just have this inkling that he's coming here, he's buying in, and I feel like he's going to be a really good, maybe the best addition to the side. And he will continue that last year wasn't just a fluke. Could be wrong, but...
No, you're right. Out of everybody, he's the one who's coming off a form year. So, like you said, he's got the experience at the NFL level. I mean, for me, obviously there's free agents who I'm looking forward to seeing, but, you know, the undrafted free agents are where I'm really looking. I've, you know, made it known that I'm a huge fan of multiple of them. You know, if I'm going to do a hot take, I think some of these undrafted free agents are going to make the 53. I genuinely do when I see some of their skill sets and what they can do. I mean, the 3 I've always been hard. Obviously, I've rung the bell for Demetrius Taylor that many times now that it's beginning to become annoying. But still, you know, we're in a position where we don't have much depth. That's why we bring in guys like, you know, Bugs in here. But I think Taylor's versatility on the line, they look for versatility on the line, not just a nose tackle, but someone who can play all across it. And he's a pretty big dude as well and moves quick for what he is. I think he's going to come in and make waves. I know he already has. I know they've already said they're really impressed with him there. And then the receivers, we've mentioned the deep receiver battle here, but Khalil Pimpleton and Josh Johnson are legitimate prospects. Both of them. Khalil through his return skills, and he's got upside as a receiver, but I expect him to have give a really good showing for the returning job here. I'm still not sold that Raymond's going to be the returner next year. And if Pimpleton comes into camp and shows out and plays really well, then sorry, but I'm taking him and I'm saving the money, because at the end of the day, Raymond's returning and that's it. I don't really see much we lose in him as a receiver. And then Josh Johnson, he's probably got a bit of a longer road there because he doesn't really do the return stuff. But just in terms of his feet, in terms of how he makes guys miss, in how he extends plays and his burst of speed, he's one of the best guys on this team in terms of how good his feet are. So there's other aspects of the game, but if he can come into camp and show improvement in the areas that he struggled in, and he shows that same nifty footwork that's making guys miss, you know, he's taking in some big catches and going down there. I think they all have legitimate shots to, you know, you know, go against some of these guys who are lesser down the depth chart. So the undrafted free agents where I'm looking at, we've shown that we can go into the class of undrafted free agents and get guys who can contribute to this team going forward. It's not just a thing where it happens rarely. We found some good players last year. Brock Wright came in, Tommy Kramer came in, Jerry Jacobs came in, AJ Parker came in, all undrafted free agents. And they're going to be parts of this team going forward, some of these guys. So I'm really looking forward to seeing them and how they do.
I mean,
Trinity Benson. Trinity Benson is a player that I wrote off last year. I very publicly said he shouldn't be on the team. It was a bad trade. And then at minicamp, you saw like the little rumblings like, oh, he's making plays here. He's making some corners look silly. Like I said, this guy's not here. He's taking his chance. He's fighting with Khalil. If he makes 53, I will publicly apologise to him. I'll even write a little post that says I'm sorry. But I am looking forward to seeing him in pre-season. I've got a feeling that he could get a lot of targets while Cephas works his way back. Like I said, there's no Jamo. Like I said, there's other guys on the outside. But if we're talking in the slot, him and like say Amon Ra and like some Khalif Raymond, like he's probably going to get a lot of targets. He has got the most to gain and the least to lose on this team, I think, because a lot of people have written him off. There's nothing. If he gets cut, everyone will be like, oh, I told you so. If he does really well, everyone will be like, well, goddamn, Brad Holmes knew what he was doing. What a great trade. So he could be the hero to zero, if I put it like that. No, wrong way around.
No. No, I got you. I got high hopes for him too, but one of the guys I want to mention now, and it's actually pertinent because Jim Churchill in the chat's just said linebackers are horrible, and they are. But what it means is that there's room for one of the free agent signings to perhaps make a splash. Now, there's guys with potential high upside, but until we see it, we don't know. And Ant's rolling his eyes already because he knows who I'm talking about.
I think I know you're going to say.
It's Chris Board. I'm not going to say Jared. I'm saying Chris Board. I know that Ant's saying a career special teamer, you don't want to be banking on this guy. I'm not banking on him. The linebackers are horrible. But what we saw in camp was some really, really promising chat. Now, if we're going to be talking about the fact that Trinity Benson can get on this 53, when we have a good wide receiver room, when we have a horrid linebacker room, the fact that someone like Chris Board can come in from the best coached team in the NFL and one of the best linebacker rooms in the NFL not quite make the cut there and come in here and be the best linebacker on the team is just not far-fetched to me. And actually, it's not a reason to be disappointed. We're coming from a low place, and all we can do is get better from here. And if you tell me halfway through the season, our starting two linebackers are Malcolm Rodriguez and Chris Board, I'm going to be a very, very pleased man. And Ant is already smiling because I threw in Malcolm Rodriguez there. I thought he'd like that.
Playing to my vanity, Matthew.
But at the end of the day, we need guys with varying skill sets. And Anzalone, while dependable, is just dependably slightly worse than average. And that's fine. That'll get us by for a little bit. But if you want someone with high upside, Chris Board's a very athletic player who's a good tackler. And he's got good instincts about run defense. And Malcolm Rodriguez has exactly the same thing. You want to be good on first down. Those guys are going to get the business done. But I've got high expectations for Board in coverage as well. So let's see what happens with that. But with the linebackers, I'll take what I can get. If you're talking about an impactful day one player, there's not going to be many that could do more day one than Chris Board and also Deshaun Elliott. We're expecting Deshaun Elliott at this point to start, I think, at safety. I don't think we're expecting Kirby Joseph to start. So Deshaun Elliott's going to be the strong safety at this point. That is going to happen. We know he's a big tackler, going to hit hard, which is exactly what this defense is looking to do. So fits the mantra of the team, what we're trying to do, like a glove. If you've heard the interview with Aaron Glenn on the podcast with that prick from ESPN that I will not mention the name of, Aaron Glenn said effectively, we don't want to outright go and injure people, but we want to make them fear us by hitting them hard. Deshaun Elliott's going to be that guy. And actually coming in day one being a starter, he's also someone that I've got high hopes for. I mean, wouldn't it be a wonderful thing if Kirby Joseph looks good in camp and yet doesn't get seen for the first third of the year because he's been kept out of it by someone playing well? That is what Deshaun Elliott could do for us.
You're just trying to upset Ash now, aren't you?
He's not in the chat complaining yet, so.
Yeah, for me, Glenn's being bashful. I want to go out there on defense this year, and I want to put some players in body bags. I don't care about hurting people or not hurting people. I want to take their best players off the field. If that's a legal tackle and they end up getting stretched off, I couldn't give two shiny shites. But he's got to say, I can say that, he can't say that. Like I said, if Deshaun Elliott can live up to that 1 year, like that 1 year where he was an outstanding box safety and he was really good and graded highly in the box, I'll be a very happy man. I agree that Kirby will be highly inconsistent in the rookie year. Like I say, he's going to get, when he's on the field, the QB will know it because they'll try pick on him. But that comes with the territory of being a rookie. So, yeah, it's going to be a slow process trying to break in a rookie safety because it always is. We saw it like Bobby Price and that. When they came in, they got picked on a lot because they were rookies. So it's going to be growing pains. But Elliott is someone that I really am looking forward to see because he's got a chip on his shoulder. And I'm just kind of going off what people are telling me as well. Like I said, I want to see if he can show me what I've seen in that 1 year and try to overlook the fact he was hurt for the other 2 years as well. So we'll see which one we get.
I love Aaron Glenn's triple D philosophy on his defense. They're talking about, what is it? Diagnose, deny, and defend.
Dodge.
Yeah, it is like diagnose, deny, then defend. It's actually pretty good.
I like that the third D of defend is defend.
Well, he says you've got to diagnose the play first. You've got to know what play's coming. Then you've got to deny. So you've got to put yourself in the best possible
disrupt
position.
First one.
Oh, disrupt. No, yeah. Is it?
No, disrupt. He was talking about the fact that with one of the things that's been lost in defense is the fact that defenders are not trying to hit guys within the first 5 yards of the line of scrimmage because you can do what you want there. So we've got to go out and just hit them.
Oh yeah, and then there's deny, so you've got to put yourself in the right position to make a play, etc. And then you defend the play. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you got all that sort of stuff. But in terms of, I knew you were going to do all this stuff with board and that is fine. And honestly, I don't mind. But I just think there is a lot of praise being put on these two, and I know this is a completely hypocritical stance because of the amount I've stand over Malcolm Rodriguez and that, but history tells you, especially in the Lions case, that core special teamers here don't go on and do anything significant. Jalen Reeves-Maybin, for years, we said, oh, he's a great special teamer, he's going to be a wonderful linebacker. No, he wasn't. Let's face it, he was all right last year. Then he ran off and got paid a bag elsewhere, but we wouldn't have paid him. Well, really, frankly, he's not good enough. I mean, you've got Sean Dion Hamilton. I know he was injured last year and that, but we're told, oh, yeah, special teams guy is going to do something. Anthony Pittman, special teams guy, oh, he's going to do something. They don't. They just don't. They don't magically turn into starters one day. They don't go from, oh, yeah, I've just been a great guy on special teams, but I've not had a first team op. If these guys were starters, they wouldn't be leaving their current teams. Their current teams will go, oh, my God, this guy's got starter potential. I'm going to keep him and I'm going to play him. They're not just going to go, oh, yeah, let him walk. That's fine. Unless they've got some stupidly good depth at that side. But, from what I'm seeing, where these guys have come from, the depth ain't exactly an issue in some of these areas. So to expect them to come in and be starters, I think, is people just setting up to let themselves get let down. And I'm just trying to can that because we've seen examples of this type of player who've come in and not done it. People used to rave about Reeves-Maybin, about JRM. And yeah, it was all right, but he was only ever that, all right. Nothing better than all right. And, I don't think we can really expect more from Board and Elliott than to be any more than all right. At least in the short term. Maybe long term when they've had more game time and that they might do, but certainly not straight away. So, all these people going, oh, yeah, they're going to be amazing right away. I just think you've got to temper it a bit because you've seen firsthand what happens to those sort of guys. It's not usually good.
Maybe not, but I think potentially the alternative is worse. Maybe it's me just chugging a little bit. But let's not forget the 5 Ds of Detroit defense. Duck, dodge, duck, dip, dive, and dodge. No, wrong one.
Are you suggesting we throw wrenches at opposition players now?
I mean, they should be able to dodge it, right? Football players should be able to dodge a wrench.
No, well, not if you're a nose tackle. Not if you're a nose tackle and you're absolutely huge. It's hard to be, avoiding projectiles getting thrown at you.
Maybe
They
I'm
could
being
probably
unfair.
just pick them up and fling them right back. But hey ho.
Dan Pask in the chat has made an interesting comment on the Twitch chat, which is one of the things Aaron said in that interview. I don't know whether you guys have listened to it. I don't know whether you've picked it up or not. But he mentioned something that he does every off-season, which is that he goes and spends a few days with a guy that I didn't know, I've never heard of, and I don't know whether the fact that you guys are more into college football means that you know who it is. But Al Groh, he goes and spends a few days with Al Groh every off-season. I think he said he was a
He's the
former Virginia
disciple. He's another one of the
Virginia
Parcells.
Tech head
Yeah.
coach. Yeah,
He's
so
one of the Bill Parcells disciples. That's the tree that Aaron Glenn comes from. Is Bill Parcells. You see how he
Indeed.
talks about him all the time.
So Dan said, I looked him up, and apparently he was head coach at VT when Matt Schaub was there. That's the crowning thing. I mean, Schaub was a very, very good college quarterback, right? If I remember rightly. And I don't remember very well because that was a long time ago. But
yeah, so was Case Keenum. Case Keenum was a record-setting quarterback in college football many a moon ago.
We've got Geordie Mansion on YouTube giving us some absolutely fantastic questions to use after we finish talking about camp. So I just need to copy another one of these questions. That's the second one he's got in here now. If any of you guys do have questions you want to address at the end of the show, please do get them in now and we'll address them a little bit later. Let's move on to talk about our final aspect of this training camp, which is the camp battles. I've chosen like 9 or 10 that I think are potentially the ones which we're going to have to watch out for. But if there's any more that you want to bring up as we go through them, please do. The first one, though, is backup quarterback. We'll start on offense, we'll start on the most important position. It's the backup quarterback battle. I don't know whether you think we're going to keep 2 quarterbacks or 3. I'm in the camp that it's 2, because I think we've got so much quality in the rest of the team that I'd rather not cut wide receiver 7 than keep quarterback 3. Don't know how you feel on that one. But when it comes to someone suiting up for the game, this camp battle is absolutely massive. Boyle versus Blau. What do you make of this one? Who do you think is going to win out for it again? Is it Boyle's to lose at this point just because of how last year ended?
I think we're going to have a surprise late inclusion of the Scarecrow, and the Scarecrow is going to beat them both out.
No, I can see another
back me up
quarterback
here.
coming in during camp.
Yeah.
I can see someone like an ex-USFL quarterback come in and something like that, and someone will come in and compete. Right, as of right now, if I had to pick, we only carry 2 quarterbacks. The third quarterback is redundant and just taking up a spot that belongs to a possible skill player. I know they like Blau, but it would probably be Boyle. And that's not me talking, that's the team talking. They see something in him that we've not seen, but they just think he has that spark or whatever. We've seen damn squid. But right now, it would be Jeff. It would be Jared and it would be Boyle. But I want to see someone else come in. Like I said, I just bring a flyer in on someone like
I think there's a good chance.
Cookus or something like that.
I think there's a good chance you see Kurt Benkert here. He's the latest one the Packers have just let go. And he's kind of, again, another Aaron Rodgers endorsed quarterback there who did all right, but they've let him go. I would not be surprised to see Kurt Benkert end up here in camp at some point. And I would not be surprised to see him push either one of those 2 out.
Let JT Barrett have a go. He could be better than one of these 2.
Could be. I don't see anyone new coming in. As much as I want it, I would love to see it. I don't believe in either of these guys. From what happened last year, from what they put on tape, if they were going to make a change, I think it would have happened already. I think you'd see 2 new guys already. The fact that they're still here means I think that the staff believe in them. I also think the staff don't think too much of the quarterback 2 position. I just don't think they regarded it as important enough in terms of quality of play on the field to have made a change. Because if they did, they would have done it already. So I don't expect anyone to come in. I expect these 2 to at least run all the way through camp. And I expect us to only carry 2, and I think it will be Boyle. And then I think Blau will get through waivers and actually make it through to the practice squad. I really, really do. If we do bring in a free agent, there's a few names that could do it. You mentioned Kurt Benkert. I also think someone like Anthony Gordon could do it too. I don't think he's been picked up as yet.
Hell,
Yeah, I think
I'd take PJ Walker.
Gordon was.
I'd scalp PJ Walker from the Panthers. Now they've got about a bazillion quarterbacks there. We've seen at least he can do something at the NFL level. Yes, it was against our defense, but still better than what we've got.
Jordan Ta'amu could come back. Was pretty good in the USFL. He knows the Lions. If he's on the team at some point this year, I wouldn't be surprised if he goes to the XFL. Chris Streveler, he's one of those journeyman QB2, QB3s. He's always pottering about. So there's options out there.
I also think that it depends how long he's injured for, but EJ Perry got cut with a non-football injury designation from Jacksonville. Now, if we wait 6 weeks or so, that could clear up. And I'd love to see us pick him up because limited guy, but can do it with his legs, and there's a way to win with that. There isn't a way to win with Blau and Boyle, really. So I could possibly see that come in, at least as a practice squad hire midway through the season, potentially.
He'll be a practice player. He was in the Ivy League in college. It's not exactly a powerhouse of quarterback star potential. I love him.
Strong. I think Carson Strong will get cut eventually, and I would scoop him up for our practice squad. I don't think he's going to last on the Eagles practice squad.
No, you've got to stash him for a year anyhow, so put him on the squad, and it's a shot you've got next year as well.
Jamie Clark says, I think they're consciously avoiding giving Goff any real competition this year. Do you think it's a conscious effort to leave him the clear quarterback one, or do you think it's another reason?
To be honest, if you're bringing EJ Perry or PJ Walker or someone of that degree, you're not bringing him in to challenge Goff. You're really not. You're bringing him in to challenge the backups. And to be honest, the backups need a boot up their arse, like Ryan said. They need to be a lot better. So I mean, there was no conscious decision to bring it. I mean, you could have gone after Baker Mayfield or Jimmy Garoppolo. If you got one of those two in, then you're saying to Goff, we don't 100% trust you. But while you're sort of browsing for backups, which all teams do, I don't think it's a conscientious effort on Goff there. I think he's got thicker skin than that, and will be very confident of beating that level of guy out pretty easy.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's a conscious effort. I think the way the organisation is run, it's all based on value. If there is a quarterback as good as Goff willing to come in for under market value, I expect him to be on the team. This team has proven, the GM has proven, that they will pick up players at under market value if they're available. They will make the obvious move sometimes, and so if someone does become available, I think it will happen. But it hasn't happened right now because that situation hasn't arisen yet. You want to pick up Jimmy Garoppolo, it's going to take a second-round pick. You want to pick up Baker Mayfield, we saw what that took. But, sorry, that means eating $9 million of dead cap. There's no point in doing that.
But did Jared Goff play to his contract value last year?
Is Jared Goff ever going to play to his contract value?
No, but you're saying that they're a value team who value value. If Jared Goff ain't playing to his value, they'd have cut him. If that was your...
Yeah, but no. But the value comes from the difference between his cap and his dead cap. The dead cap is too high. There is no value in cutting him in terms of cap. You cannot replace him with a better player for the amount of cap saving you get from his contract. So it's a different conundrum.
I don't think they were ever going to cut him. I don't think there is a value here because we deliberately, the way we restructured his contract, the way we brought him in, we deliberately tied ourselves to him for 2 years. 2 years is more than enough of an opportunity for him to do so. And I don't think they're ever going to deviate from that. They've gone out and gotten the weapons this year. And, this is his prove it year now. There is no way, shape or form, even if a favorable deal appears, I still think they roll with Goff. That's the whole mantra here. It's earning your opportunity, not just discarding a player at the first possible opportunity. So I don't think it is value-based.
Joseph says Goff has no reasons for not producing this year. Absolutely true. This is why I think it's a sink or swim year for him. He either comes out this year as the starter, entrenched, maybe gets a new contract at the end of this year, or he's cut, he's gone. There is absolutely no way that we go into next season with Jared Goff and a first-round quarterback underneath him with him mentoring him next year, because we saved too much cap by cutting him, you would just go with the rookie quarterback in that circumstance. So it's a sink or swim year for him. I want Goff to succeed and us to use that first round pick on someone who's going to impact the team in a different way. But if Goff bombs out, so be it. Just wanted to rant on that point because so many people have been saying, we can mentor a quarterback. What, $32 million? No, thank you. Right.
He's a mentor. He's not a mentor either.
No.
Goff would not mentor a quarterback. He will do what Tannehill said this year, where he said, I don't give a shit about Malik Willis. I'm not going to mentor him. I'm not going to baby him. If someone's coming in to take Goff's job, like say, he won't give two shits about him. So I agree. There's no way you have a rookie in Goff.
No, it'd be like, if you're better than me, then prove it. You don't need me to help supplant you. So
no, absolutely.
It's interesting. It'd be nice to be like a fly on the wall in Brad Holmes' office and understand what the level of acceptance is for Goff this year, what the barometer is for a new contract for him. I think that I'm really curious about what their barometer for a new contract for him is, because we can all pontificate over it as much as we want, but at the end of the day, it's their decision, and they're going to have a set list of goals for him this year to achieve if they want to keep him.
Ghost Rider on YouTube says, I don't think they got weapons solely for Jared. They're planning for the future. Whoever is in the QB1 seat, they're trying to set that person up for success, whether it is Goff or not. Completely agree. The building of the team is irrespective of the quarterback position, 100%. But when the new quarterback comes in, if a new quarterback comes in, is up to Jared Goff, and that affects who can be picked. Because if you've got to pick a quarterback, you can't pick someone else in round one. So I see what you're saying, and I think it's a little bit of both.
I do, because I don't think you go out and get DJ Chark otherwise. Because, Chark's an option for him right now. Williams was always going to be a project, potentially. We might not see him for a while. So, we were never going to say that Williams was bought in for Goff, because he just wasn't. They would have gone out and got Olave or someone otherwise if they were going to give it specifically to Jared Goff. But I think the DJ Chark signing shows you that, they are trying to give him something to work. They're giving him a legitimate downfield threat to work with this year. They're giving him a fair shot. I think they are giving him a fair shot, and they've, put resources towards that. Because he's only here 1 year, so if it doesn't work, then you can cut Chark next year. The new guy gets JMO, and then you build again. So I think they've done a bit of both.
Yes, 100%. Right, let's move on to our next camp battle. Running back 3 and running back 4, if you like. So we've got entrenched as running back 3. I think at the moment it's Craig Reynolds is to lose. I mean, he earned himself a 2-year deal. I know that Jefferson's on a rookie contract for another 3 years, but Reynolds is the one that this group have decided to sign to a new deal most recently. So I think he's got the most trust from this front office team. So I put him at the moment as a leader in the clubhouse, but he has got Jermar Jefferson sniffing behind him, and also Godwin Igwebuike and Greg Bell behind him. How do you see that battle going? I mean, I think me and you are both super high on Jermar Jefferson and what he could do for this team, but he's got to stay healthy.
He does, but, he showed what he can do last year. I carry all 4 of them. I don't, there's no issue here for me. It's not a camp battle. They're the top 4 guys. They're the top 4 guys I take this year at the expense. This could be one of the groups at the expense of the quarterback 3. I'd rather take an extra rusher who I know can do something for my team than just sit there holding a clipboard. I'm not even holding a clipboard, just sat there doing nothing. So, yeah, I'd just take all 4. I mean, it's interesting. They've all got their own skill sets for me, and that's what I like about the room. It's that no 2 of them are the same. DeAndre Swift is without doubt, he's the running back 1 guy, the dual threat, do it all, game-changing potential guy there. Williams is the heavy hitter who goes in, takes a lot of the punishment, does a lot of the, between the guard type running bits in there. Craig Reynolds, he's the guy you bring in a little bit later when legs are getting tired. You make some big plays in there, but he doesn't do the start stuff. And Jamar's got the best vision out of a lot of them when it comes to his game. And, 2 touchdowns in his first 5 touches in the league last year. He was just getting on a roll until he got injured. And I will die on the hill that he will make this roster and he will have an impact this year. So I just want to see Reynolds and Jamar do well and get a place on the team, because all 4 of them should be coming with us this year.
Yep, I carry 2 quarterbacks, and that means you can either carry running back 5 or wide receiver 6 or 7. Godwin, I'm done with Godwin. His special teams is simply not good enough. His average starting position, like say kickoffs, is bang average. Special teams this year has got to sort this shit out. because our starting position last year was not good enough, and you can't fix fumbles. We tried it with Amir Abdullah, failed. Kerryon Johnson coughed the ball up too many times, so I washed my hands of Godwin. Greg Bell, for the first 3 weeks of minicamp, he set the fastest time on the team. He was clocking at like nearly 21 mile an hour on those clocks. He has got elite speed. So he is very interesting. I would love to see him on the practice squad, but he could very well be running back 5, like I say. And I'd say Reynolds and Jamar probably interchangeable. 3A, 3B. It's probably I'll put it like that. But yeah, I'll carry the first 4 definitely. And if a 5th one wants to emerge like Greg, sure, I'll just take an extra wide receiver. But yeah, Godwin for me is gone no matter what he does. He can't win me over now.
It's like you and Dan Pask are on a wavelength, right? It's just as you were saying it, Dan was saying Godwin's drops are really hard for me. Can Khalil do Godwin's return stuff? We're going to talk about kick returner as our last one, but it is one of the reasons why one of these guys might stick around the roster.
See, if I can put a potential hot take in there, if we are talking about taking a running back 5, I agree with Ryan. It's not going to be Godwin, but this is where maybe I'd look to stash Khalil Pimpleton on the team as running back 5. He has 5 rushing touchdowns in the last 2 seasons at collegiate level. He's a returner. He's a rusher. You know, you're running back 5. You only need him for certain situations and that. So if I can't stash Khalil Pimpleton as my wide receiver 6 or 7, I'll put him as my 5 at running back because he could do a serviceable job there behind the other 4. I think that could be a potential hot take there.
I completely agree, and obviously we'll come on to that in a moment, but we'll move on to our next camp battle, and it's wide receiver 5 and 6, unless you think we're going to carry 7, but we could just carry 5, you never know. Cephas, at the moment, I'm trying to install as my wide receiver 5, and fighting for 5 and 6 alongside him, Khalif Raymond, Trinity Benson, Tom Kennedy, Khalil Pimpleton, amongst a couple of others a little bit further down the depth chart. They're the front runners for me. Raymond is one who I am reluctant to say it because I'm not sure I want him, despite his speed and despite his returning ability. And he is just because the money talks. At the end of the day, I think the money talks. He's someone that actually hurts the cap to cut. There's no cap saving there. It actually reduces the amount of cap we're going to have. And for that reason, I don't think you'll see Raymond go. I think he must be wide receiver 5, despite what I think about Cephas. It makes me hope that we're carrying 6 or 7, because with what Benson's done, with what Cephas has done, and what upside Pimpleton has shown, I want to carry all of them, man. Like, Tom Kennedy I feel sorry for, because it feels like he's the preseason MVP every year, but, you know.
He's had way too many chances.
Well,
Get rid of him.
He can throw a damn good touchdown, man.
A playoff team. He wouldn't be wide receiver 15 on a playoff-bound team, and that's what we want. You know, we want a playoff-bound team, and, you know, he's not appearing in my top 10. So, bye-bye. We've had too many players. The depth has been so shocking at this team in these recent years that guys like that have hung around. And it's not to, you know, he's done well. You know, he's a great guy, but you've got to be better than that.
Tom Kennedy is the Zach Zenner of the wide receiver room. Oh, he's a nice guy. We like him. But he hasn't done shit. He's had too many opportunities.
Well, as far as I'm aware, Tom Kennedy ain't a medical doctor, so he can fuck off.
That was the thing with him. But, you know, for me, this receiver thing, Quintez Cephas is not in a struggle for his job, and I am going to die on this hill. He is not in trouble one bit. And again, I'm fed up of repeating myself on this, but first receiver who developed a connection with Goff looked miles better. He came on really well. He's one of our rookies. He's one of our own. And he made some game-changing plays last year, some really good plays. He is safe on this roster. There are a lot of other guys in there who are a lot less deserving than he is. He is not in danger, not one bit.
If we carry 6... I do not think there is any cap battle here whatsoever then. I think that it's Cephas and Raymond, and that's it. I just don't think that Benson, Kennedy, or Pimpleton will see it. If we carry a 7th, I think it will be one of those 3, and I think it will probably be Benson. We'll see.
I think you can stash the others. I think you can stash the others, but for me, I will give Pimpleton an open shot to beat Raymond in camp at his returning skills. I will take the better returner out the two of them. Be damned of the financials. We can afford a minor cap hit. We've got loads of free cap coming in next year. It's not going to screw us up long term. I'm just going to say to those two, right, we need a good returner, both on you. Go battle it out. Whoever gets that gets the last position, and you get to be a receiver as well. Because Khalil Pimpleton has good upside as a receiver. You can train him whilst all the other guys in front of him get the majority of the snaps. It's a good position for him to be in. But, you know, for me, Raymond just does not deserve to walk on this team.
Just to say, by the way, and I know it's something that you said quite a few times, so I just want to say it. We don't have a lot of cap next year. We'll get into that another time.
Yes, we do.
Our cap situation is scary next year.
No, it's not.
It is.
We have about 75 million next year.
Over the cap has us at $12 million in cap space, and we only have 49 players on the team.
That's not true.
Well,
we have a lot more.
That's what over the cap says right now.
Spot Track will disagree with you.
Well,
we have a lot.
I'll have a look at Spot Rack in a minute.
And you're forgetting at the minute all the deals for all the fringe guys are on there as well, who we're going to cut. You know, that's including everybody at the minute. We're going to have a lot more free money.
Okay.
So,
well, if we cut all of those marginal guys, you've got to replace them with marginal guys because they're cheap.
You do. But with Goff, with Brockers, with Vitae, that's 40 right there.
Yeah. Vitae ain't going anywhere.
No, he's not. But you've got options. We have a lot of free agency money next year. A lot more than we've had so far. I'll clarify this. I'll go and work this out at some stage.
Go and work it out. Go and work it out, because I want to make sure that we're singing from the same hymn sheet when it comes to 2023, because I am a bit scared looking at this information. Anyway, let's move on to our next cap battle, which is tight end 2 and 3. Now, perhaps Mitchell coming back not on the pup list does bolster his chances of making this team. As I said before, I was really worried when I was making this this planning document for this show, about what might happen to James Mitchell. You know, 5th round pick, but someone who we have really high hopes for. Could have been a 3rd round pick without the injury. He comes in as the presumed tight end 2 for me, really, if he's fit all the way through camp. But Brock Wright did some good things at the back end of last year. You've also got Devin Funchess, who, you know, he's a no one really now. But he has had some good years in this league. I mean, he hasn't had good years in the league compared to most average 2nd round picks at his position. But if he was a UDFA, you'd be saying he's one of the best that's come out in recent years with some of his production. So it's about basing expectations, right? Him on a vet min contract, $1 million. Could he do a job? Maybe he could. You got Garrett Griffin, same Zylstra has done really well so far. Then you got Nolan Given and Derek Dees. There's plenty of pretenders and plenty of contenders in this tight end room, boys.
I think a lot of those you've named are going to be practice squad candidates. Even Devin Funchess. I think Funchess will wind up in the practice squad because no one's just going to come take him off. For 2 years, he's not done anything. Like I say, he's been very limited. So he's got a hell of a job on to make this team. Even I like him, he's gone back to that natural position. I feel like he's fighting a very large uphill battle. I think Brock Wright showed flashes last year, but not consistency. Like I say, he was either really high or you just kind of didn't notice him at all there. I'd say from right now today, he's probably tight end 2, but I'd say his position is very much under threat from the likes of James Mitchell. Derek Dees Jr. as well. He's someone that was pretty good in college, a good blocker. So I think because we had so many injuries last year, I think we're going to have to carry 4. I think we need 4 tight ends. The way we go through them and where we use them, they get a lot of mileage and we chew them up pretty quickly. So
not counting Jason Kabinda as one of those tight ends. We've got to put him in the roster somewhere.
Well, no,
he's got to be in the roster somewhere.
He wasn't even on my roster, was he? He didn't. I was the only person.
We're talking to the wrong person here. The superback needs to be in there somewhere, Andy.
No, he don't.
To be honest,
I love him, but...
to be honest, you know, the tight end is one of the camp battles that I've got less feeling about than the others. Just I'm not really aligned to a particular player. Obviously, I really like James Mitchell, but I think he's going to make it by default anyhow. But outside of that, I don't really have a particular alignment to a player. So for me, it's just go out there, win the job. Whoever does it, hopefully they can bring something in. I'd probably go with a more specialist blocking guy, but I mean, I guess if that means Garrett Griffin, then no. But you know, may someone come through it. You know, Brock Wright earned a deal. I'd just carry Mitchell, Wright, and TJ. I think Brock Wright showed last year that he is worthy of this team. So, I hope Wright and Mitchell do it personally. But if we're gonna take more than that, then fine. Whoever's best, go win it. I'm not too fussed.
All right. I agree. I think 3 tight ends, Wright and Mitchell. But it's interesting to see. I mean, there's just some guys there. I mean, if Funchess hits his ceiling, it could be so interesting, right? If he does just enough to make the team, or the practice squad gets elevated, does something with it. I mean, like, the sky's the limit for him. The problem is he's a real boom or bust guy, and he's far more likely to hit the floor than he is the ceiling. So I'm not holding out any hope he can do it. But you never know with a signing like that. But Zylstra's the one who's really come on leaps and bounds for me. What he showed at the end of last year was a little flash here and there, and then they got that horrific injury. But he's made a comeback, and then through minicamp, they were raving about him. So I'm hoping that Zylstra could be the guy.
If the sky's the limit for Funchess, then he must have painted some clouds on his living room ceiling. I'm sorry.
We're talking about the floor as well. The floor is low, like it's a fucking sinkhole.
We've got a question on ceiling versus floor, so we'll talk about that in just a minute. Let's move on to our fifth battle, and we've got 2 actually on the offensive line. The first one is offensive tackle 4, and there's only 2 in the mix here. It's Dan Skipper versus Albina Eze.
Are you putting Matt Nelson on the team as
Matt Nelson's on the team by default. He has to be. I hate
fucking
it.
Dan Skipper.
What?
Man, just go away.
You know what? This is an easy thing. Albina Eze is a project, and we need some depth at tackle. Eventually, we need to, but we don't want to put a big draft pick into it because we've already got 2 first-round picks at tackle. So the best way to solve that problem is develop somebody to avoid having to spend more on the tackle position when it could go elsewhere. So for me, Skipper, I don't even say no bad against him. He does what he needs to do. He's good in the jumbo formation, does what he needs to do. But I'd rather keep the young guy and develop him because Albina Eze is really good in his run game is damn good. But it's his pass game, which is atrocious when it comes to speed rushes, which is what he had a massive issue with. But I'll keep him and I'll develop that aspect of his game. I'll bring him in the jumbo situations when we're running the ball, etc. There's a spot for him here. So, it's just bring the youth through. We don't need to waste our time with vets when, the positions are set. And we've seen that Skipper or Nelson can't be reliable long-term backups in this team. They can come in and fill a spot for a bit of a game or maybe one game. But outside of that, they're liabilities. So get the youngsters ready, get them trained, and then bring him in. If Albina Eze in 1 or even 2 years' time comes to fruition as a good depth guard, then, that's great for us. That's wonderful.
Yeah, this is easy. Skipper, we've said like 15 times, and he's not done anything. He barely lasts a few days, sometimes on the transaction wire. He barely gets to the facility, and we've already released him again. So give Eze a chance. I'm a TCU fan. I know he's a mauler and run blocking. Their pass schemes were dog shit. But if he can run block really well, you can teach him a pass block. I'd rather have someone that can run block to learn to pass block than someone that can pass block that can't run block, because one of them is going to be a lot more useful.
Yeah, you can do one thing with, you can bring him in as the extra 6th lineman as a run blocker. You don't bring a 6th lineman into pass block. So, like you say, you can use them you can use them right away.
But then that's exactly what we should do. I want to see jumbo set goal line plays where we go play action. Let's do it.
I want to bring Aleem McNeil in on those short line situations. College teams, some of them will bring their nose tackles in that situation to just absolutely pile drive a defensive line out the way. I want to see that. We just need to go all out aggressive with some of these.
Yeah, Dan and I would like to call out slander against Matt Nelson for being a guy on the roster automatically, because at the end of the day, he is a great 6th lineman. He's not a great swing tackle, but coming in as that 6th guy, he's one of the best.
I've never said otherwise. We've acknowledged his, role on this team as a 6th guy, as a jumbo package guy, as a backup guy, for a few snaps if someone takes a bit of a twang or something. Absolutely fine. But we saw what happened last year when he's a week in, week out starter. He gets ruined. And that ain't good for this team long term. So eventually we have to start putting, I mean, when was the last time we developed a tackle with a late round pick? I mean, we've had Decker for years, and then we've just sort of got by. So, yeah, this isn't the last few years. If you say like 2015 or 14 or something, that's a long time ago.
No, I'm trying to work out something else. So Geordie Mansions just said Alim and Eze on goal line plays is amazing. I'm trying to build this idea where we've got Eze in as a sixth lineman, we've got Alim McNeil as the running back, we've got Jason Kambinda as the fullback, but we've got JMO as the ex-receiver on the outside, and then he
Just
kind of
got
motions
nine guys.
We got JMO motioning inside and then running a drag route across the formation as a play-action play. We use Alim McNeil in play-action, and then as a pass protector for Goff.
So we've got a 9-man offensive line, one receiver, and then the quarterback sneak over.
I love it. I love it.
It's going to happen. I would love to. If we're blowing someone out and we're a yard, I want to see something like that happen just for giggles. And like I say, college teams do it, so why not us?
Indeed. Right, last one on the offense here for camp battles is guard 3. So obviously your starting guards are fairly entrenched, but the camp battle of Stenberg versus Kramer, Obeid, and Jarvis is yet to happen. And quite frankly, I've got a favourite of the 4 of them, but I'm not so wedded to any of them that I think any of them could win that battle. If you told me that Obeid is going to be the guy to come and be the backup because he shows out in camp, I ain't going to be surprised. Now, I really like Kramer. I'm done with Stenberg at this point. He's been on the roster this long, and that's a credit to him because he started out really badly. But I think there comes a time where you've got to say, actually, fundamentally, if you haven't done it by now, there's something a bit wrong. And actually, I'd rather put my faith in someone a bit younger than him now who can maybe develop with this coaching staff. And I think either one of the other 3 could meet that criteria. I don't expect it to be Jarvis. I think he's coming from a bit deeper. But Kramer or Obeid are the 2 players that I want to see win that battle. What do you make of it?
So when we talk about the likes of Dion Hamilton, etc., you say that because they've been here so long, the coaching staff must see something in them. So keep them. But then when it comes to Stenberg, it's like that same logic doesn't apply. These narratives change depending on the type of player that you do and don't like.
Well, Sean Dion Hamilton has been someone that was mentioned as potentially linebacker 1 in last offseason by several media people who were actually there. Whereas Stenberg has never been mentioned anywhere near the starting offense because he hasn't played well. So I'm only going off the chatter at the time.
Oh, hang on. No, the end of his first year, he was getting critiqued. And I'm a Logan Stenberg fan. He got critiqued at the end of his first year. We all know he had loads of problems with his technique and giving away penalties. We all knew that was going to be an issue. So, sometimes big things like that, your technique, your fundamentals of how you play can take a few years to fix. It's not easy to get some of these bad habits out your system here. And at the start of this summer, when it was training camp and that, there were a lot of good things said about Logan Stenberg and the way he was playing. So he got critiqued in his first year, but a lot of nicer things have been said recently. So I think we can't underestimate the fact that he's working on issues which you can't fix within a season. They take a long time to fix. But there is a reason because Kramer did really well last year. For me, Kramer should win it outright because Kramer came in and was a very good guard. So I wouldn't really be having him in a competition with anybody at the minute. If Stenberg was even, if he wasn't doing what I thought he was going to do, I'd have chucked him because I've got faith in Kramer. So there is a reason that even though Kramer's doing well, he's still here. To keep Kramer and Stenberg, and they're both playing well, it's good offensive line depth for you.
I think the thing for me with Stenberg is we heard about the fact that, like you say, he had trouble with penalties, with discipline. You also heard that he looked bad. Like, it wasn't just that was the only thing keeping him off the field. You heard that he was playing badly at that point. Now, you're right. There has been better chat since. And that's the reason why he's still here. I haven't heard that he's actually become more disciplined. I don't know yet. But from what I've heard and where he's come from, maybe he does have a shot, but I just don't believe it yet. And maybe it will take camp to see that. But this is his biggest camp in his career for sure. Ryan, do you have any different thoughts on it?
Nope, Kramer for me. Ben Stenberg, I'm sick of waiting. He's the Deshaun Hamilton. He's the Deshaun Hand of this side of the line. Like I said, if now it's shit, I'll get off the pot. And so far he's been constipated. So I'm not wasting more time. I'm not going into a third and a fourth year and they're like, oh, well, he'll get there eventually. No, he won't. So Kramer, for me, played well last year.
Dan has a good point, which basically says this is going to be a good camp battle and the loser should get to the practice squad. Logan had an MCL injury last year. He's been unlucky like Hefe. And I can't argue with that. It's a very fair point. Let's move on to the defensive side of the ball. Defense. And we're looking at the Will Jack linebacker position. Now, I know Jack isn't a role that we really have anymore, but we are still going to be playing some 3-4. Don't believe the guys who say we're only solely going to be playing 4-3. While it's going to be the majority of what we do, they're going to change bits and pieces depending on who we're facing that week. And just to throw in a little bit of something different. You remember when we played the Eagles and it was said of them, they completely outcoached us, we saw things we didn't expect to see? We're going to do that to people, and that means showing up with something different. So 3-4 will happen, and Jack linebacker will be a position which will happen. But the will, or that sort of rush linebacker, is a position which is going to be so important in this defense. And there are 3 main guys looking to take that role, which is Julian Aquara, Houston, and Jared Davis. I know that both of you guys really do like Houston, but what do you make of the battle? Do you think he can realistically win it?
Yes. I think if he can't, then why have you got him here? I don't, it's... Yes, he's coming from a system where, it's not the greatest... It's not the greatest level of competition in the world down there in the FCS, but there are plenty of FCS players who make the jump and come up and are good at what they do. And Houston's played specifically at linebacker for a lot of his college career, and then he's had an amazing year at edge. He brings you the versatility you want when you're playing in that sort of position there. He's good when it's going, he's good getting after the passer, and he's good against the run game. Julian's never, ever been good in the run game. And, our linebacker core needs to be a lot better this year when it comes to helping to stop the run. It's just something he doesn't do. Yes, his pass rushing's good. But again, then you have to look at the injury history. Do you take a risk on that, et cetera, et cetera? For me, it's starting over from the position. Getting the rookie in there, using the young guy, and giving him the opportunity to come through and do it. For me, personally, I know pretty much everybody will disagree, but that's just the way I see it. I just think you need a guy who's good in both facets of the game, and Julian is not to play that sort of position.
I agree. Jared Davis, he isn't good in any aspects of the game. I didn't want the scrub back in the first place. I don't want him on the team now. I haven't seen him do anything of note, and I don't think you can pigeonhole into another role again. So for me, it's Houston or Aquara. But Aquara is so close to the bubble, like say that he's got soap in his eye. That's how close he is. Like, he is very close to making this team. But I agree. I want to give some youth a go, like I say, because I've seen enough of Jared Davis, and that guy, he can do one. So, like I said, for me, it's Aquara and Houston. I am not asked about this defense trying to find a role for Jared Davis because they feel like they have to, even though I know they will, and they will try as hard as they can to get that man on the field. And he will probably come out this season like 1.5, 2 sacks. I'm just not interested. I'd rather develop or see if Aquara can overcome these injuries and inconsistencies. So it's hard. Like I say, might tip Houston, but I think Houston will end up on the practice squad and they'll probably try give Aquara one last chance.
I mean, I'm bullish on Aquara and what he can do. He did flash last year and he did spend most of it healthy. And I think that another healthy year under his belt, he'll show why he was mentioned as a first-round potential talent before he got injured in college. I know that he was a third-round pick. I know there's shades of other past hopes at that position who didn't pan out, but maybe it is one last chance. If he gets injured again this year, maybe it is hitting out the door, but I want to give him that. Jared Davis has had it, and that's enough for me.
See, if someone started listening to this podcast when you started talking about that person there but didn't mention the name, they'd think you were talking about Deshaun Hand.
100%.
We've had this problem before, and again, it was it was great the loyalty they showed towards Deshaun in trying to get him healthy, but at the end of the day, it gets to a point where it's glaring you in the face that you've got to make a tough decision with it, and we can't afford to wait that long on a guy to try and develop again when the injury history is just so recent and so extreme.
I don't want to run people, but I'm all out of loyalty. My tank has just run empty. I want to win games. So Jared Davis, I'm sorry, like piss off.
And
Like if Aquara struggles through camp and picks up more knocks, you can go. I am lowering my, like I said, that the time I'm willing to put invest in the players. Stenberg, you've had just enough, like I said. If you do well in camp, you can stick around. If you struggle, like I say, your ass is getting kicked to the curb. I am all out of this. Or 3 years is when they get there, 3.5 years, like I say, because I'm tired. I am getting tired.
I'm the same, but with all ours, it's like if Romeo gets injured this year, if Swift gets injured this year, if TJ gets injured this year and they miss significant time, then I'm sorry, but they're cutthroat business now. Loyalty only gets you so far, and you have to start making some tough calls eventually. And we have far too many players who've been injured on this team, and we just can't accommodate them all and wait for the recovery periods of them all. I mean, did you see that thing? I know they use the Tigers as well, but they use the stat with the Tigers. I think in the last 2 seasons, they've lost, 1,600 games to injury, both teams between them, because the injury situations are that rotten. Now, I get there's a lot more games in baseball and all, but still, the Lions will account for a lot of that.
No, they won't.
They will.
They won't. You have someone injured for the entire year in baseball. Oh, well, some guy's injured for 150 games. Fuck it. Like, sorry, 1,500 games
in
could
NFL
just be 10
terms,
players in baseball.
All right, you take the Tigers out of it and you just do it in NFL terms. I reckon we've lost more game time than
we lost a lot of games. That's true.
The whole point is, injured players. You've got to, eventually you've got to make decisions quicker on them, tougher decisions. And yes, it might cost you a pick that you've only had in a recent couple of years or something like that, but you can't afford to keep waiting. This team cannot afford to keep waiting. How many players on this team now have had significant injuries recently or have a recent injury history, even if it's just smaller knocks? It's a lot. And you can't rely to get them all healthy at once. The best teams are the healthy teams, and they have the availability. The key playmakers available at all times.
True. Right. Interior defensive lineman. We've got a starter battle, boys. It's the only one so far that's a starter battle, and it's defensive tackle 2. I think we all agree that Ali McNeil is a starter and that he doesn't really have any competition on this team. But defensive tackle 2, Michael Brockers versus Levi Onwuzurike, is a real battle. Now, I expect Brockers to start game 1 right now, just because he's the vet. But I will be sad if that happens. Levi is the hope, the guy that Brad wanted to take at the bottom of the first. This is a guy who comes in with a lot of potential. You saw what he did at Washington. And he's much bigger now. He looks absolutely ripped. He looks hungry. I don't want to see that on the field from the very first second he walks into camp. I am so hungry to watch this battle because it's one of the key ones for me.
See, I don't see starters at defensive tackle. I think it's a position that requires a lot more rotation than other positions do because of the physical nature of it. And for me, it doesn't matter to me whether Brockers is starting or whether Levi's starting or, hell, God forbid, Pascal's fit and, he plays really well, he's starting. You just care about the rotation. Are you bringing the guys in the right situations? Are they playing well? They are all going to have their part to play. And for me, I don't care who starts, just as long as they play well and just as long as they don't have a name like Nick Williams. That's fine with me. Anyone but him is fine with me. But I don't care for the starter status of them, just as long as they're all playing really well. And that defensive line, I keep saying it all the time, it needs to fire this year. If we want to be the 7, 8, 9 win team we all think we can be, then a lot of it's going to go through that defensive line, creating pressure. So we just really need them to all perform.
If you have to put someone in as DT2 just to put in position, Brockers, but over the whole of the field, I want to see Levi getting like 60+% of the snaps. I want to see him eating into that. I want him to make Brockers irrelevant. I know you've got to rotate them at some point. I want Levi to say, this is my spot. I'll come out when I'm physically can't play. Even if I'm tired, Brockers, you're not coming in. Like I say, if you're fed up Brockers, we'll trade you at the deadline. Like I say, if you're going to throw your ties out the pram, Levi, I want him to make that spot his own. In a four-man front, I want him next to Aleem. Like I said, I want them to be the rock, the bed we build this interior on for the next coming few years. So this is a very big year for Levi. Like I say, we had those frustrations last year, which held him back. But this year, we're coming in, fresh mindset. Like I say, he looks ripped. He looks like he's been got a chip on his shoulder. He looks like he's fired up. So I can't wait to see him.
And again, I'm not willing to accept any more talk about injury about him now. He's had his injury issues last year. He's had more than enough time to recover from them. If he starts having injury issues again, then my patience is going to wear very thin with him. As Ryan says, he needs to come in and start performing and taking some of these snaps now. And hopefully he can, because, you know, I love him as well. College, his tape from Washington is amazing, and what he can do, given the position he was put in there, which wasn't the best one to succeed, he'd be such an asset to this team. But again, health, I'm going to be watching very, very, very closely with him. There's no room for him to be injured again.
Absolutely. And then talking about the bed that we're building this all on, there's another battle at defensive tackle. We've got Brockers and Onzarike at 2 and 3. But then at 4, and I'm not putting in Pascal here, mainly because I think at least he's going to be given a chance at edge to begin with. I think he will kick inside a little bit, but I'm just not considering him for this a little bit. But defensive tackle 4, there's definitely going to be this spot on the roster, and there's so many people that it could be. And you've already mentioned your guy, Demetrius Taylor. But the guy in the clubhouse at the moment, I think, is probably Jashawn Cornell. He's had a very, very strong off-season, and he had a strong off-season last year as well, I think. But then other guys in there who've really performed or have either been signed by this front office as well. You've got Bruce Hector, who played so well at points last year that he forced his way onto the team. You've got Eric Banks, who remains on this team, despite the fact that I'm not really sure why. But you've got John Kaminsky, who got signed by this front office. And you've also got the new signing, Isaiah Buggs. It's a crowded room, and the strongest are going to win out here. But I do think it's going to be battle of the top 2 that I just mentioned at the top. Demetrius Taylor and Jashawn Cornell, for me, is the battle.
I'm done with Cornell. He had his chance last year to come into a weak room, and he got his PED suspension, whatever it was, and screwed himself. Wrong attitude when we needed him. Sorry, but for me, I'm done. I'm going to bring in a guy who's got a point to prove and a guy who's versatile across the line. I'm not going to go on. Demetrius Taylor's the guy there for me, and he absolutely has to be. Don't want any has-beens or any guys who've just bounced around other squads and aren't really doing much. I'll just take the youth. I'll take the youth who are coming fresh into the league and have a point to prove rather than any of these journeymen. And yeah, I'm done with Cornell. I'm not fussed anymore with him.
I think it's a battle between Taylor and Hector. I think Cornell is another prime candidate to land on the practice squad. It's great in camp, but when it comes into a season, can he really do it on the field? I doubt it. I just don't have the hope that he can come into a real game scenario and be as effective as can be on camp. So I think he'll wind up on practice squad again. Likes of Kaminsky, just camp bodies, probably bounce around. Like I say, they're just there to make up the numbers. But I think I've got high hopes for Taylor and Hector. Hector's shown flashes as well. You can make a case for stashing them both away. At least one of them should make the team.
And he performed in preseason last year, so he showed it on the pitch as well.
All right. 3 more positions on the defense to go through now. The first 2 are cornerbacks, and I mean, we're talking about starters as well as depth here. Slot cornerback to start with. You got the incumbent AJ Parker against the high-priced free agency signing that Ryan identified earlier in Mike Hughes. But in terms of players who can play there, you've got the big slot potentially in Ife Melifonwu. You've got the whatever he is in Will Harris, and you've also got the 7th round pick Chase Lucas. They all can play there, and I mean, you've got other people that have been mentioned that could move into that space as well. Jeff Okuda's been mentioned as someone that could move inside, amongst others. I'm not going to mention Okuda here because he'll come into the outside cornerback room, really. But there's 5 guys there who, I mean, in AJ Parker, the guy who started in the majority last year. Mike Hughes, the guy they decided to bring in. Melifonwu, one of the higher draft picks from last year. Will Harris, the guy that they clearly believe in, despite all the evidence to the contrary. And then Chase Lucas, a guy that they went and got. You know, let's not forget that he wasn't just someone they were willing to wait to pick him up as EDFA, but they went and got him. These are all guys that for some reason or another this front office believe in. The battle will be fierce for this position, and we need a starter and a backup, if not a third. So where are we going with this, boys?
I mean,
I think you can take Iffy out of the conversation. I think he's an outside corner or he's a safety. I don't see him playing in the nickel slot. I don't think his frame really works that well inside. You want to use his length and that height and strength. So put him outside on the back end. I think Mike Hughes comes in with a bit of a chip on his shoulder. He'll consider himself as top dog. AJ Parker was great last year. He was really good, a great story, and he did very well. Like you say, until he bunged up that injury that ended, like you say here. I think AJ Parker's coming at the backup. I think Will Harris will somehow make the team. He'll be on the depth somewhere. He's not on my depth, but I think he'll make there. My boy Chase, I want to say, because like I say, he's really experienced, but there's nothing that he stands out and jumps off the period. He's just really good at everything he does. Probably get stashed away in the cornerback on the practice squad. I think a lot of the DBs can up on the practice squad. I'd like to see him activate at some point this year, but I will go, I'll say Mike Hughes, AJ Parker, Will Harris. They're my 3 slot corners.
Quirky Zerky's made a good point that actually the Will Harris has been mentioned more as an outside cornerback, but I feel like he tried to be fitted in both positions last year. So anyway, but
his coverage is trash. I'm not putting him on the outside. Screw that. I'm mostly in there with her. I mean, to be honest, I'm just excited about the corner position. I think it's going to be, like you say, very fiercely contested. So hopefully the cream will rise to the top and we will get the best out of them all. I know I am inherently a little bit biased towards AJ Parker. He's got to prove it in camp that it wasn't just a fluke of a season. I know, you look at the PFF grades and that they don't read great, but, he's an undrafted free agent coming into a room with no veterans, no depth, no experience, and getting thrown and, getting matched up against some of the best receivers in the league. What he did was, nothing short of incredibly good, and I want to see the players who come in, work hard, improve themselves and want to make this team. I want to see that type of player on my roster. AJ is the epitome, along with Jerry. Both of those two, they are the epitome of the player you want in Detroit. They've got the attitude, the mindset, and they're developing right. So I hope he wins a battle there. I'm quite happy to see others like Lucas and Will Harris and that miss out if he gets in this team. I think Hughes will probably take the starter spot because we talk about all the potential we have at corner, but there's very little that's been realized so far. It's in little short spurts and that. He's had a really good season. We say corner is a position that takes a long time to develop at. It didn't happen for him at Minnesota, but it looks like he's coming together now. He's probably maybe one of the one set corners we've got on this team apart from Amani. So, you would hope he would do well and some of the youngsters can follow through with him. So yeah, I think it'd be Hughes, it'll be Parker. I don't want Harris near the team. I'd sooner take Chase Lucas. I'd start afresh again. Sometimes you've just got to jettison these vets who are not performing and bring in some young guys and try again. And especially when we're doing it at inside corner 3, when you're starting to get a bit down the depth chart, I don't mind taking chances on other guys there, as long as it's not the starters you're playing around with.
I won't beat around the bush too much with this. Quirky Zerky says he plays best ball at outside corner, so his play says otherwise. For me, that is probably true, and it still wasn't good enough. I'm cutting him. I'm not hanging about. Mike Hughes, starter. I don't think AJ Parker makes it. I think it's a great story, and I hope that he does for a reward for what he did last year. But I just think we'll have better players on the team. I want to see Hughes, Melifonwo's big slot, Lucas backing it up. That's what I want to see. Just because I think that is going to produce the best outcome for the Lions. It's nothing to do with it. If it was about sentimentality, AJ Parker would 100% be there. But here we go. Outside cornerback. There's a lot of names here. I've not listed Jerry Jacobs because he's injured. We don't know how much of a part he's going to play. But we're also talking about starters here. Now, we know one starter. Amani Oruwariye will be a starter in this coming year. The rest of the guys are fighting for places 2, 3, 4, 5, really. And that's Melifonwu, who could still play a part outside corner. People are writing him off. People were saying he's a slot. I just said he was a big slot. But he could be an outside corner. He could convert to safety. That is perfectly within the realms of possibility. But you've also got Gilbert, Savion Smith, and Boswell in that room too. How do you see this shaking out, boys? Ryan, what do you make of this cornerback room?
See, in my heart, and I'm going to pay him. I'm going to look at him. Armani is a cornerback 2, but on this team right now, he's cornerback 1. Right now, he's the first name written down on the team sheet, corner, let's say, because Jeff is still rehabbing. Jeff will walk straight back in that position, given a few weeks, once he's shaken off the rust. The team is in the best position if Jeff is the best corner, because we know what he can do. I think Armani will be a great complementary guy to him. So I think those two, are set. When they're both healthy, they'll both start. I think Jerry, when healthy, is cornerback 3. I would say Iffy is cornerback 4, and the others. No one asked about keeping any of the others. I know you have to, but you can pretty much put them in every order. Like say, go Savion, then Matt Gilbert, and then the rest I just get rid of. I'll have 6 outside corners.
Yeah, there's no one behind Iffy on that list there who's going to threaten the starting positions. Me, I'm starting Iffy because I've seen Iffy's development on the field. I've seen how well he plays. Even in game, he makes adjustments to his mistakes. He's developing at a rapid rate. So for me, the future of this franchise is Iffy. Iffy could potentially be a cornerback 1, and as we've all said, we don't think Amani's cornerback 1. He's cornerback 2, and a very good one at that, but he ain't the 1. So I want to be developing my 1 and getting him in the team. And I know Kuda's there as well, but hell, I'll develop 2 1s if I can. So yeah, I just want to see Iffy ball out and get all the snaps he can this year. Because I think he's legit one of the ones we're going to sleep on most. If he has a great year, he'll be cornerback 1 by the time the year is done. And who knows? If him and Akuda both come out at the same time together, we don't have to pay Amani. We still have 2 guys on rookie contracts. It's a bonus for us going forward.
That's the best scenario, yeah. We can get rid of him.
Yeah,
just let him walk.
Amani can go and get a big bag of money from someone like the Jags, or that'll overpay him shed loads, and we get our 2 guys there. Obviously, hopefully Amani stays, but money talks. And if we don't think he's a cornerback 1, we don't want to give him cornerback 1 money, but we might be in a position where we have to if it all goes Pete Tong. And that's not the situation we want to be in.
No, I'm with you guys. I've got nothing more to add on that. Safety, interesting battle at safety 2. Obviously, Tracy Walker is going to be safety 1 and first name on that sheet. But we've already mentioned Deshaun Elliott. We've got Kirby Joseph, CJ Moore, Juju Hughes, and then maybe Melifonwu plays a part in here as well. Will Harris doesn't get looking at safety. If he does anything, it will be at corner. So I'm not talking about him at this position. I don't know about Juju Hughes really, and CJ Moore I don't see as a guy that really can step in and do any meaningful reps. So for me, it's just about Deshaun, Kirby, and Iffy. What about you guys?
I nominate Ryan.
I think Kirby Joseph, we're going to see very little this year. I think CJ Moore will, if they go 3 safety set, I think CJ Moore will start before Kirby. I think it's going to be a long reining in process. Because if you throw the kid in yet and he's not ready, you're asking for trouble. He's the last line of defense. He will be the deepest safety on the field at times. So if he ain't ready, we're going to get our asses burnt. So you will see Juju Hughes and CJ Moore taking snaps until Kirby is ready. And I don't think that'll be until at least week 7 or 8.
I did forget one name as well, Brady Breeze, who's been mentioned as a very good safety by several people. So.
Well, I think we can forget that name as well. I don't think we're going to see him much. But yeah, I agree with Ryan. You don't want to hurt Kirby's chances. The safety room is thin, as a wafer. You've got to develop it right. Because if you don't, then we're going to have to spend more draft picks in the future trying to fix it, or we're going to have to spend free agency money trying to fix it. Obviously, we want these guys to ideally come in and develop into first teamers. So we can't ruin him too quickly. If what happens, if he gets one thrown on him like Jeff did last year, and it's the player that's always played, and he gets blown up on national TV for being like that, it could be detrimental to his play. So yeah, you've got to ease him in. And if he's not ready, he's not ready. Give it to Deshaun Elliott. Give Deshaun Elliott his chance. You know, that's what players come here for. It's the land of opportunity. See if you can take it. If not, like Ryan says, come week 6, week 7, if the experiment's not worked, and if Kirby's developing well, then you start putting him in more.
Brady is good. He's a special teamer. I put him on my 53 because I think he could surprise people at camp. But right now, he's very inexperienced.
It's like CJ Moore. It's just another one who's great on special teams, and you want to keep him around just for the special teams ability. But with a bare-assed safety room last year where we had no talent outside of Tracy Walker, really, he still didn't make a position his own. He didn't come in and we didn't noticeably see him get better. It's just like that there says everything you need to know. Too many players on this team who are special teamers who don't contribute anything to the first team. And that's the issue with him again. If you give him a roster spot this year, a 53-man roster spot, then you're doing it just because of special teams, and you don't want that. All of your 53 should be able to be a competent first teamer as a bare minimum.
Completely disagree. And
well, that is your right to.
Well, so Riz brought this point up specifically on the DLP this week and said the Kansas City Chiefs had 2 players who did not play a snap on defense who were special teamers. So you can't say that good teams don't do this because demonstrably that's false. And if you want to say that that's what you want, then that is absolutely your prerogative. But I don't think it has to be the way that it has to be. It has to be the way that what they want to do.
But they have the championship caliber team already there. They can maybe afford to give 1 or 2 spots out to a special teamer to not contribute because they've got the first teamers in there. We can't really afford that luxury because we don't have a championship caliber team at the minute. You know, I think there's a difference between the 2 teams doing that.
Their defense was off.
I know you love, but I mean, for me, I want 53 players on my team who are either in that team or can get in that team. That is the whole point of having such a big roster, is to have guys in there developing to make it through to the team. He's not. For me, I'm sorry, but he's log jamming the system. You know, there's someone else in there who could be getting snaps, who could be a first teamer down the line. And
Kansas City's defense last year was god awful.
No,
Daniel Sorensen.
No,
their second half season was bad.
On that.
Daniel Sorensen was one of the worst safeties in the entirety of football, and he played nearly all year because they didn't have
Frank Clark is
a special teamer.
Yeah, and if Frank Clark ain't in that edge room, then they've got nothing. Frank Clark is an exceptionally gifted player on that defensive line. They got no one with him there, or they didn't before the draft.
So Kansas City had a very Jekyll and Hyde team on both sides of the ball. They started off with the offense hot and the defense one of the worst in the league in the first 3 or 4 games. That's when they were losing games. And then the offense went anemic and looked really bad for basically the entire rest of the season. They had 12 games with that offense looking bad. And their defense was like number 1 in the league for like the last 12 games of the season. Now, yes, you say about Clark, fine, fair play. But that defense was exceptionally good for down the stretch. And I mean, not just down the stretch. For the majority of the season, that defense was really, really good. So
until they played the Bills, when they were awful.
Okay, but the Bills are one of the best teams in the league.
Well, yeah, but still.
So you're saying that number 53 man on the roster would have made a difference against the Bills, because that is what you're telling me right now. And it's bollocks.
No, I'm saying number 53 man on the roster will do his special teams duties, but in the future, he will be able to have an impact on your first team. Is CJ Moore ever going to be a first teamer for the Detroit Lions? Yes or no?
No.
There you go then. So
No.
he's holding the room up for someone who can. There is potential for special teamers to come through and be first teamers. That is what you want. That's how you build your team. That's how the Detroit Lions build their team. We keep saying we're going to build through the draft. We're going to build through our youngsters. So if we're going to do that, then we need to put as many youngsters on there who have upside to get into the first team as possible. And we can't afford to just give spots away to people who aren't going to make it.
But there's lots of players in that 53 spot that are going to make it to the practice squad that we can stash and still develop them there too. I don't think that it's like live or die at this 53-man spot. But what you will see is us maybe losing an extra game because Jack Fox gets a punt blocked because we took a guy who had slightly more potential on defense but wasn't as good protecting the punter. They block the ball at our own goal line, concede a touchdown, and we don't make the playoffs this season. And you say throughout all this process that actually, at the end of the day, winning is the thing that's most important. And you know what? Players will come after that. But if winning's the most important, why don't we get the best overall team, including special teams on the field, right now?
But there is another guy out there who can do it. Every time you mention this, you just talk about the personal protector. That is it. That is the only position you mention as a viable thing to make this argument work. We let Miles Killebrew go. Excellent special teamer. Oh, we're not going to be able to replace what he does on this team. We have. Special teams didn't suffer last year because Miles Killebrew had gone. He was clearly never going to make this team. Someone else was on there who might have a legitimate shot at making it now. I'm sorry, but there has to be.
Gunners are a lot easier, and
Gunners are a lot easier to replace, and yada 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 yada.
They are though. You
There
say
will
yada yada
be.
yada as if that destroys my point, but it just doesn't. It's just bollocks. You're not
So
saying.
you
anything
telling
against
me
my point.
there is not one player out there who you can't draft or who you can't go out and get free agency who can be a personnel protector who can potentially make it to our team? Now,
What
I'm not
I'm-
expecting you
what-
to answer that, but there will be players out there who can do that. There will
What
be
I'm
guys who you
saying
can
is,
draft
if
who
they
can do
could
that.
go and find that guy, then they could have done it in the last 2 years, but they didn't. Is it because they didn't want to, or because they couldn't? Well,
Because we've had no draft picks. The draft picks have had to go elsewhere.
if it was that
Oh.
easy to do, then we could do it with the UDFA. Why does it have to be a draft pick?
I never said it was easy, but Moore's been here years now. You had a lot of
And
time
he's
to fix
done
it.
very well at his job.
Yes, he has. He's a great special teamer,
Anyway,
and I get that. But
yes, we could argue all night on this point. I think we both know where we stand on it. Let's move it on. We've got 2 special team battles, but not the punt protector. I'm glad to say, but it is a kicker battle with Siebert and Patterson. Now both have had bad off seasons, apparently missing the majority of their kicks, even from inside 40. So this is a battle where Siebert, when he was playing, looked very good, and I think we were all pretty happy before his injury that he potentially was going to be the guy. Then he goes and gets injured. We bring in Patterson, who makes the majority of his kicks, and now suddenly recency bias says that Patterson's the guy. But I don't think there's anyone with any leg up here whatsoever. Do you guys have an inkling on who might do it?
I just care what they do on the field. We've seen both players have been competent kickers on the field. I don't care less what they do in training as long as they do it on the field. So may the best man win. I think
We're going to see more kickers.
Yeah.
Kickers are 10 a penny. Every team, even if they're set on a kicker, they recycle them. We'll see at least 3 more kickers at some point, I bet.
You'll see some college kickers. A lot have already been released. I know Burkich, the Oklahoma kicker, he's already been released. He's money from distance. So I think you'll see a lot of guys.
I don't care who wins the job as long as they can make the down kick. So if I go off recency bias, Patterson, let's say, probably gets the first attempt in practice. That's as far as it goes with the bias. If he misses, let's say, next man up. So yeah, I don't think, I won't be surprised if it's neither of these guys.
I agree.
Right. Last battle we've got is the kick and punt returner jobs. Now, we're led to believe that those are split jobs, that they will not be one player taking both of those roles. Diversifies the risk if one of them gets injured, which I think is a smart thing to do. The incumbents, Khalif Raymond was the kick returner presumptive last year until he was wide receiver 1 for a good amount of time. Godwin Igbuke then did have the majority of the snaps at both positions. We did also see that Tom Kennedy is apparently trying to battle for this role, but Khalil Pimpleton is the one that we're really talking about here as someone who's a threat to Godwin and Raymond. What do you make of it? Because I have Raymond and Pimpleton taking those jobs, and I think they should be the ones that are presumed to win it unless otherwise stated, because Godwin, for me, the fumbling means that he is not a viable option at running back, but Pimpleton is a viable slot receiver. So in what Ant was saying about the punt protector, but flipping over to a role that I think is more realistic here, I don't think Godwin brings anything to the team, but Pimpleton really does, and without drop-off. In fact, I think Pimpleton could just be a better returner full stop than Godwin. So,
Easily.
Yeah, definitely. And again, it's given a chance to a younger player who has upside. So, I think we've seen what we're going to get from Godwin, but we've not seen what we can get from Khalil. But again, it's whoever wins the camp battle. I'm as long as they all get fair shot, I just don't want Raymond's name penciled in the team at the minute. I want them to give Khalil And Godwin, for that matter. Just a legitimate shot to beat him out in camp, and whoever wins gets the job. But I prefer it to be Khalil, and this is a tongue twister, this is. Khalif and Khalil. I would prefer to see them as the returners. If they both make it.
All right, that is all of the battles. We've got 2 questions to get to. We've been going a long time, but if you do have any questions that you can get in before we've answered these 2 questions that are coming, please get them in the live chats now and we will address them. Otherwise, we'll get through these 2 and we'll call in a night. They're both from Geordie Manchon on YouTube. His first question is a philosophical question for you in roster management. I think it's a really interesting one. Do you favour keeping players with high upside but low floor, or do you prefer keeping players with high floor, low upside, so dependable and average, or boom or bust potential? What is your preferred strategy? And he also follows it up with a little side question: is it different for different positions? Now, I have my own thoughts on this, but I will defer to both of you first.
I think it's definitely different for different positions. For an offensive line, I want the highest floor. If you can give me the highest floor across the board and a stable line to run behind, that's fine. Wide receivers, I'm fine with a high floor, but with a quarterback, you want total upside. You want the guy that can get them there. If they can get the ball in their hands and make something happen, that's fine. But as long as the quarterback can get them there, that's okay with me. So it definitely varies per position.
Yeah, I agree. See, I know the question. I know he wants a definitive answer for the question. So my definitive answer would be, I would go for the higher floor, lower ceiling guys, just because I don't like the risk nature of high ceiling, low floor. Because more often than not, I feel like you hit the floor rather than reach the ceiling. So if I'm let's just say I draft a 53-man roster against another guy who drafts a 53-man roster. I have 53 players who have good floors. They're going to be decent no matter what happens. They're going to be solid players there. And the guy who I draft against, say he hits on, 20, 25 of his 53 players, let's say maybe half, is my 53-man team, which is at a higher average, which is good and will play as a unit, be better than his half a team, which is really good, potentially great, and the other half that's really bad. Some of them could be on the offensive line. They could be trash. It'll give me an advantage. Just theoretically, I would sooner have the safety of knowing that all my team was steady, because this is a team game at the end of the day. It's very rare that individuals themselves will, in some of the situations you can say they do, but usually it is a team effort that gets you to the Super Bowl and wins it. So I just prefer the higher floor for me. Not that I'm an instant gratification guy, but I just don't like the risk of the other way around.
An simple comparison is, I would rather have 53 Ryan Tannehills than 53 Malik Willises. You've got the super high ceiling and a dreadful floor, but you've got the really high floor of Tannehill, but the ceiling is not high. He's bang average. But you know what you're getting with him, and it makes you. He's a safety. He's a security blanket. He's blanket. He helps you get to bed at night. Whereas Malik Willis can be a scary mover.
I mean, maybe that's a question for another day. If we go through, we ask ourselves that for every position, we could do something then. Because I agree with both of you. I think it does. It varies by position. To me, like if I'm a running back, I'd rather go for the running back that has the highest ceiling that can be a game changer for me. Sort of like that. I'd sooner go for because I can replace him really easy if I don't. They're two bob a penny. So, it might be a question for another day to do them.
100%. Geordie's got a follow-up question to this question, and I'll say it, but then I'll give my answer on the first question. You can just mull over this. He says, is this going to change as we get more competitive? Let me get my answer into the first bit, and then you can mull over that. Does it change as things go on, and hopefully we get better? So at this point in the build, and I mean, this was something I was going to talk about, Geordie, is that if you are a Super Bowl caliber team, you already have some high upside players. You better be chasing the high floor players, because that's all you need to tide yourself over to maintain where you are. if you are a team regarded as being one of the worst teams in the league or one of the lower teams in the league, you better be chasing those high ceiling guys, because you know what? Those high floor guys are far easier to find than the high ceiling guys. And you know what? If you boom or bust when you're not expected to do anything, who cares? One guy ain't moving the needle massively. But if you can bink on a couple of guys, that massive changes the trajectory of your team. And if you're already down, where down further can you go? So it does change as you go. But if you took an average team, I think that it does depend on position, as Ryan says, and I actually agree with the positional type. So I think on both sides of the line, defensive line, offensive line, I want floor. Because if you can just averagely defend the run, if you can averagely pass rush, if you can averagely defend the quarterback, that gives you a chance. And then in those skill positions is where I want to take the risks. Wide receiver, cornerback. You know, Dallas has one of the worst outside cornerbacks in the league in coverage, but because he got the most interceptions in the league, suddenly Dallas are a viable player on defense. And you know what? If he does it again this season, I mean, it just completely changes the way that people can play cornerback. Because if you're a ball hawk, it doesn't matter how many yards you give up during the season. People will think you're damn good. And you know what? An interception here and there, if you can get near one a game, if you can get 12 interceptions in a season, if you give up 600 yards on your own, well, are you still providing value? You probably are. I mean, interceptions are such a momentum changer for a team that they do count more than yards. So even though he's terrible in coverage, like even with the amount of interceptions Diggs gets, teams are still going to target him because of how many yards he gives up. But he's going to continue to get chances to get those interceptions. So I want to chase that ceiling when it comes to those guys because it just changes things so much. Don't know if you guys have any more thoughts on the sort of when for a team rather than who.
I think it's a very intriguing question, to be fair. But for me, I chase the high ceiling guys early in the rebuild because, like say, I can only benefit from reaching that ceiling. You know, my team will have some bona fide superstars when I get to the point where I'm contending, and I have to be a lot more careful about what I'm picking. Because for me, if we'd have this Jameson Williams trade, right? If we'd have done this in 12 months' time, say that we win 7 or 8 games this year, we have a decent season, our upward trajectory is going there, and you know we're going to be threatening the playoffs next year the way we're going. If we drafted up to get a receiver who was going to be injured most of the year, but has that potential high ceiling with him, I'd have been majorly pissed off. I would have wanted someone who could come in right away and be the difference maker and get me over the edge into the playoffs. But because it's this year, I don't mind that he's going to miss a few games because, you know, I still think we're going to have a great season, but I don't think we're going to make the playoffs. So I can afford to almost give him the time to recover, bring him in, bed him in, and then next year I'll unleash him on the league when I think we will be ready to go on the playoffs. So I would sooner do it early next year, you know, if we were to go for I see people say we're going to go for a receiver again next year, but if we were going to do it next year, I would want the guy with the highest floor possible. I wouldn't be aiming at the highest ceiling. I just wouldn't because I've got my game changer in Jameson Williams. I don't need another one. So, yeah, for me, I take the high ceiling shots earlier, and then the closer you get to contention, you've got to be sensible and build your roster to get there and not risk the rebuild of your team by potentially busting on a load of guys.
Yeah,
I agree. 100%. Look at the LA Rams. LA Rams were built to win. So what did they do? They went to the Lions and got QB with a very, very high floor. And Stafford's got a really high floor, and it won them a Super Bowl. You also know that he can throw a lot of interceptions. So his ceiling is high, but his floor is fairly safe. And they'd spent picks all around him. They brought in OBJ. They brought in guys like that, those high upside guys. And that got the best out of him. So when you're in win now mode, you go out there and you get the safest person you can. You get that highest floor.
Right. Let's get through another couple of the questions. We have had some more now. I think I've taken my last one, so thank you for those. We've got another 3 after this next one. Another one from Geordie. He says, which position groups will need to use their depth players the most due to injury? I hope none of them. I think we've identified D tackle Ant as one of those. Any others that potentially might get a lot of use of their depth pieces?
The linebackers. The linebacking depth is going to be, I think all of them are going to be well into the hundreds of snaps this season. Because I'd have that by design. Because again, I've said that each of our linebackers has a speciality, and you need to use them for that. And so I would be rotating them round, and I would be giving the depth a lot of time on the field, because the more of them that you give game time to, the more chance you're going to hit on one of them. And if we can even just hit on one linebacker this year, just one, makes your job that much more easier when it comes to the next off season.
I'd probably say corner, because we've got guys coming off of injuries that have a higher capability of reoccurring, unfortunately. They've all had these dodgy knee injuries, lower body injuries. We could go through a few corners. It's very easy to reoccur a knock to somewhere like that that's been significantly hurt. So we're going to see a lot of the cornerbacks.
And sorry.
Oh, sorry, go on, Matt.
I'm just saying my answer's wide receiver. At the end of the day, Jameson's already injured. Chark has proven that his longevity is difficult to bank on. Cephas is coming off an injury. It's hard to see past that for me.
Yeah, and I was going to apply the same logic to the D-line. Romeo Quara's coming off injury. Levi's coming off an injury-ridden season. Pascal's coming into it injured. And again, this goes back to my point earlier about loyalty to injured players. Look how many position groups in like 30 seconds we've just highlighted as possibly using its depth because of the sheer amount of injuries we've had there. You have to change that narrative somewhere along the line. And it means being brutal when it comes to injuries and injury records and just moving on as quick as possible.
Right. 3 questions left. I'll ask this one first because the other 2 are more throwaway questions. One Prime 40 on YouTube asks, outside of Hutch, what rookie are you most excited for? Very quickly, boys.
J-Mo. I put this on Twitter the other day. I have not been this legitimately excited to see a Lions rookie in probably over a decade. I am that excited to see J-Mo when he's fully fit and going.
Yep, it's got to be. He is going to be a huge impact. It's just when he gets back. It's just a matter of time.
He's the full package of speed and route running ability. His agility is off the scale.
Yeah, I don't think we've legitimately seen such an exciting prospect since Sue. And I don't think that's a stretch because we knew Sue was going to be a game changer on that defensive line. We knew it, and he was. This is one of the first legitimate, real skill position game-changing players we've had in a very long time. And, it's just, I'm excited thinking about it. You don't get that very often. We've not had that in recent years, though, have we? I mean, obviously, Penny last year, great signing, but we knew what we were going to get here. It's just like, this could be a legitimate game-changing, game-breaking talent. That's what a wide receiver can do for you.
Yeah, and opposite Chark is going to get all the chance in the world as well. I can't wait. Right, 2 throwaway questions to finish. One is fun, and one is not. So I'm going to start off with the least fun one, actually. Not David Reinford, he's the fun one. Quirky Zerky on Twitch, one of our subscribers, and we thank you very much for your support, but he is a bastard because he says, when Will Harris makes the team, what are the doubters going to do in recompense?
I will... Hang on.
I mean, Ryan's already predicting he'll make the team, so I don't think Ryan has to recompense. But me and Anne, I think we need to think of a forfeit if Will does make the team.
I'll shotgun a beer live on air or something like that. I'll imagine, is that a bad thing? I don't know.
No, I mean, I'm very willing, never mind to shotgun something. I'm willing to just come on and chat with people and get bloody drunk.
You know what? In that case,
I think that'd be great.
Because what I've been doing, I've actually been looking through Will Harris's game footage from last year, his cornerback exploits, as you were, to see if he's really that good. When he makes the team, if he does so, I will do a live stream and we'll do some rookie tape footage. We'll do some tape footage with him, and I will be nothing but nice to him. That is what I'll do. That is a bad forfeit, and it will hurt me and it will pain me physically to do. So I hope that, satisfies your lust for chaos.
on a Saturday night, I'll come on and I'll get drunk with everyone live, and that will pain me. That will be, especially on Sunday. So just as painful, but physically rather than mental.
If any of our British fans out there own an Everton shirt, get Matt's address and send it to him, and he has to wear it on air for us. You could do that. There we go. There we go. There, we found yours.
We're moving on to a more fun final question. It's going to be a good one to round off. David Reinfurt69, another subscriber, another absolute hero. He asks, here is my question. Can you talk a little trash about the Chicago Bears? Sounds like the new GM is off to a rocky start with players getting arrested. Boys, are they one of the worst NFL teams we've seen in some time?
Yes. I mean,
it's a bit of a leading question. Sorry.
He only needs to go and look at our Twitter feed to see how much shade I fire at the Bears. I at least do it 3 or 4 times a week. You know, I try and keep it reasonable because, you know, we like Ryan and Bear Down Report, and I don't want to piss them off too much. But yeah, they are a terrible team, and the way they've gone about they've drafted their franchise quarterback, and then they've not protected him. They have spent very little on there. I know they got Tevin Jenkins last year, but he had an injury history. He was injured all last year, and they're banking on him coming back and being a super tackle the second year. They got the Chargers guy today, which I know sort of improves things a bit, but it's like they're just putting 5 bricks of Lego in front of him. They don't connect, they don't work. They're just 5 individual units there that are not a cohesive team like ours are, and he's going to get hurt again. It's like, why draft your franchise quarterback and then not protect him? If he takes 50 sacks this year, like, you know, Burrow did, you could injure him. You could potentially ruin him before you're ready. It's not how you build a team. You take your quarterback at the end, not at the beginning. But there's no offensive line to protect him. None of those first 5 would make ours, regardless of what they say. They've not given them any receivers to work with. They got Darnell Mooney, and that's it. And the fact that they're having to hype Darnell Mooney up as the next coming in Calvin Johnson, and they're having to, you know, magnify Justin Fields up to be the best quarterback in history shows how worried they are about it. They're going to be a poor-ass team. That defense has carried them the last 5 years, and they've traded it and cut it away. So they're going to be exposed now as the frauds they are, and they're going to pick top 5 next year. Sorry, Ryan, if you are watching. Love you, love your show, but your team, they're going to be bad this year.
I think it's pretty worrying that they're already at a stalemate with their highest draft pick. That Jaquan Briscoe won't sign his rookie contract because he's not happy. Are they already trying to lowball him? Are they already trying to shit on him because he's clearly offended he won't take the deal? So that is not a good sign, because it's not often that you have to get rid or trade guys, like say, that won't sign a rookie deal. Eventually they might come to a number, but it's not the best way to get off on a relationship with someone that has to anchor a defense that's got fucking Eddie Jackson next to him, who's been a total liability for years. That secondary, and they're in trouble. Yeah, when they wouldn't pay, like I said, they're relying on Jalen Johnson because they didn't want to pay the Fuller brother 2 years ago. It's very knitted together, but it's loose. It's hanging at a thread. Is that secondary currently? Khalil Mack's gone as well, so that defense is in rebuild mode. Like I said, they've got a wide receiver room that is like our room last year. You really need someone to come out and fucking pull the socks up, because if they're relying on Equinemius St. Brown to be able to do what Amon-Ra did this year, they're fucking cuckoo land. Put the meth pipe down. I don't know what's going on. Velus Jones.
It's not Amon-Ra.
He's not. And he's not going to have the impact they think this year. He is just one of those deep threats. He's speedy, doesn't have a big tree. Darnell Mooney is a good player. He's a great 5th rounder, but he's no wide receiver 1. He is not going to tear this league up. And some of those deluded Bear fans I see on Twitter that think that he could part the Red Sea. The guy's not Moses. And Justin Fields has got to be able to get in the ball. I feel so sorry for Fields, put into a really shit scenario.
And they're not paying Robert Quinn either. He's holding out. And it's like, you know, he's worth paying. He is that good. And they've got... Didn't
he just set their franchise record for sacks last year? Like 22 and a half sacks.
Yeah. And they harp on all this time about, we've got 120 million in free agency or whatever ridiculous number they have next year. And they're like, well, they ain't going to pay the star guy. He's going to be damn difficult to replace. along with all the other guys. You've got to have a linchpin of your defense somewhere. And if they're just going to let him walk and take another draft pick, well, the way their GM's drafting, I really wouldn't trust him to do so.
And the problem is, with $120 million next year, I mean, have a look at what New England did last year with free agency and where it got them.
You're going to be
At the end of the day,
$50 million to Hunter
absolutely,
Henry.
you get fleeced, but you make bad decisions, and the team comes in with no chemistry whatsoever. So having that much spare cap is not a good thing. If anything, they need to bring in players now, push their cap hit into 2023, and see if they can build some chemistry for next year. At the end of the day, this team is threatening number one overall. Like, it's really close because this offense is bad. This defense is bad. And can Justin Fields do enough to win enough games to make sure they're not picking number one overall? I don't know, because he wasn't good in large parts last year. And most of that was down to his offensive line. We know he's a quarterback who wants to hold on to the ball a little bit longer than some other quarterbacks too. I think his average was over 3 seconds last year before he released the ball. You can't do that in the NFL. You can't do that with this offensive line. But when you got Darnell Mooney as wide receiver 1, I mean, that puts a lot of pressure on him to perform. And frankly, he did a bit last year with AR-12 on the team. But AR-12 ain't there anymore, man. And if you're putting a lockdown cornerback on Mooney, where's the rest of it coming from? Byron Pringle was a good wide receiver 4 in Kansas City. He's there too now. Velus Jones is a speed merchant, but meh. We've gone through the rest of it. It's a bad team, and I can't wait to see how bad
Equinemius got called depth. That Bears beat writer earlier saying that they're one wide receiver away from a good unit called Equinemius depth. When's he ever been depth?
According to ESPN, he's wide receiver 7 on their chart. So I think that beat writer is a bit deluded because not even average people think that he's going to make this roster right now.
And didn't the other one get arrested? I can't remember his name. One of them got arrested as well.
I can't remember.
Apparently, Cole Kmet breaks out this year. They've been saying that for 3 years now. He hasn't done shit in this league.
The only time Bears tight ends have a good game is against us, which is very depressing. But yeah,
anytime any team's tight ends have a good game is against us. Remember the Vikings?
Yeah. I reiterate this: we need to sweep the Bears next year, and we need to do it convincingly. That's how bad they are.
One Pride 40 says, is Ryan Poles Bob Quinn bad? Remains to be seen. We don't know. He's dealing with a shit situation in Chicago right now. I think any judgment on what they're going to do going forward is premature.
Yeah, he's blowing it up. So I think it'll be harsh to judge this year because I think they're blowing the whole thing up, and they'll go with the high draft picks next year. They've got a lot of free agency money, so they'll start building next year. I think in 3 or 4 years you can judge him, but this year you can't. You can hardly blame him. Like I say, it's an aging defense carrying that lame-ass team for years. It's not going to last forever.
No. Right, that's going to do it for us for this episode. We've been going on for 2.5 hours now, so if you are still listening, thank you very much for sticking with us. Just want to say at the end here, please do get on our feedback form, or your last chance to really direct the future of this podcast. We're all meeting ourselves on Thursday for our annual meeting. We're going to talk about how we did, what we want to do, and how we want to do it. So if you want to get your words in on what you'd like to see and what you'd like to change, please do that in the description below. It'll take 5 minutes of your time. Otherwise, next episode, this time next week on the main show, entitled Why Support the Lions? Hard Knocks Edition. Hard Knocks airs 9th of August, I think 9th of August, between 10 and 11 ET. So that is the following Tuesday from that show. So we're going to preview what it is we'll be looking for from Hard Knocks, and why it is we're Lions fans, and why it is that you all should be too. Roar the Lions college football podcast, though, is coming back in the in-between times. Last week, they talked about the Sun Belt Conference. This coming week, and
we're talking about the American. It's a fun league. Some good things going on in there this year. Some quarterbacks. So, yeah, join in. I'm hoping everyone's enjoying it so far.
Fan Man says, where's the form? I'm pretty sure I edited the description to put it in. If you haven't got it, then just refresh the page, and it should be the first line in the description of YouTube.
I just want to say to Det Fan Man, your loyalty to General Booty is impressive. We're going to get this for the next 2 years. The Oklahoma quarterback, General Booty, he loves him. And I worry what happens if we don't draft him. But yeah, kudos to you, man.
Yeah, there it is. Right, do come and join us on Wednesday for the College Football Show. And otherwise, if you're not following us, if you're not subscribed to us, if you haven't liked the episode, please do that for us. It takes no more than a minute, but means a great deal to us. Roar the Lions UK on YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. If you want to find us, we do have a link tree which shows all of the places that you can find us at linktree.com/RoarTheLions. Facebook group for worldwide fans, Detroit Lions fans, UK One Pride Worldwide. Not run by us, but lots of good stuff from both sides of the pond there, and articles on RoarTheLionsUK.com. Just remains for me to thank my co-host Anthony Fitzpatrick, Ryan McCluskey. We will see you all next week. Let's go Lions, One Pride.
One Pride.
One Pride.